At Arizona State University, we've made online education better, smarter, and more personalized so you can go further in your aspiring field.
I decided to pursue medicine once I realized that ASU did have the online program for biological sciences. You're still required to learn the same curriculum. You're still being tested on the same content that anyone would be tested on in person. The comprehensiveness of the program prepared me so well for medical school.
Explore over 300 programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
You have entered the PM Entertainment Podcast.
Hello and welcome to an all-new episode of the PM Entertainment Podcast, the show that says, oh, you have a speedboat we can use and you want a part in the movie? Put on this Beetlejuice jacket and you can be the chief of police, because we don't have time to mess around. There are speedboat chases to film and speedboats to explode. The show that says, how do we show the audience this woman is truly evil? Have her light a hillbilly's crotch on fire. And the show that doesn't have time to turn around and do a second take when its stunt person's wig flies off into the ether. I refer, of course, and as always, to those denizens of direct-to-video action town, Rick Pepin and Joseph Mehy, the P, the M, you know what time it is. It's time for some PM entertainment. I'm your host, John Cross, and don't forget, if you like the show, please remember to rate and review us on any of the podcasting platforms you use, share our Facebook posts and our Instagram stories, like, comment, and you can contact us via our email, pmentpod@gmail.com. That's pmentpod@gmail.com. Also, just a quick shout out to Huck's Pop Culture Cafe, hosted and run by Brian Huckabee, who was Chicken Boy in Steel Frontier. I had the absolute undiluted pleasure to be a guest on his show, his YouTube channel, the other night, and we got all into all kinds of PM, all kinds of physical media, and it was just an absolutely fantastic time. So the link is on our Facebook page and on our Instagram, but check out Huck's Pop Culture Cafe over on the YouTubes, and you will be able to see a guest appearance by yours truly, John Cross, on his episode from the other night. It was fantastic. It was all PM concerned. It was all about physical media. It was all about movies. It was a geek fest of the highest order, and we had a great time. Go watch it. All right, this week, we're incredibly honored to have the legendary Cynthia Rothrock as our very own guardian angel. The film is from 1994. It's the only film that Cynthia sadly did for PM, but that might just be because if you were engaged to Marshall R. Teague and he was shot in the head by a French woman, you'd probably throw in the towel and go live in a Winnebago with a dog and wear a lot of flannel as well. It is directed by Richard W. Munchkin, who goes all the way back to the start with Joseph and Rick, and directed Dance or Die for City Lights Entertainment back in 1987, a special Blu-ray edition of which is now out from terror-vision.com and is also available from brotherbelial.com, Diabolique DVD, and all the usual online indie Blu-ray retail stores. Please don't forget, if you're going to buy some of these special edition Blu-rays, shop small, people. Shop small. It means so much more than just going onto Amazon. And a lot of these things don't even appear on Amazon, so you have to shop small, which is fantastic. Anyway, pick up Dance or Die. It's an incredible special edition by the director of Guardian Angel, Richard W. Munchkin. Okay, it is written by the legendary Jacobsen Hart, who wrote the lion's share of the best films PM Entertainment ever made. The fight choreographer is Art Camacho, the stunt coordinator is Cole S. McKay, and the costume designer was Lisa Diehouse. I bring it up because that's funny, isn't it? I suppose, were you wanting to change the color of some fabric for a costume, you would have to go to a dye house. Anyway, our guest this week is a returning champion that at this point should need no introduction, and so instead I will give him someone else's introduction that I found lying around the podcaster's break room, discarded and flecked with ketchup. This week on the podcast, we're joined by a man who's been struck by lightning twice, both times while trying to microwave his own shoes during a thunderstorm, a man who legally changed his name to Alan Dazzleton for just 3 months in 1998 for tax reasons he refuses to explain to us, and when we pressed him on it, he made a menacing face and shook a rather angry-looking sock puppet at us. He's the only person banned from both SeaWorld and Chuck E. Cheese in the same week for what he will simply tell us were hair-based incidents. He believes bees are just angry sky raisins and is the only man to get kicked out of a mime class for being too loud. Give it up for amateur zipline architect, goblin rights activist, and self-declared winner of Most Elbows 2019, the one, the only, Matt Pereira. Matt,
yes.
Thank you ever so much for coming back on the PM Entertainment podcast. You have now guessed it, this will be your 4th time. And so we've run out of things to ask you about you. People already know so much about you. And I don't know if they care or not. I hope they care. I care. I deeply care. And I hope they care too. But I've run out of things to talk about. So, Matt, why don't you just let us know what's happening over in the world of direct-to-video connoisseur? Because you did do something today that is PM-related. Let's talk about it now.
I did. So I've got a new computer that's got a faster processor, more RAM, and I thought, why don't I download OBS? I was familiar with it, and I was like, why don't I make a video for YouTube? Try it out. And so I created a video, essentially going over the opening action sequence to Skyscraper.
Boom.
So the Bud Dry truck that blocks it, the guys doing the dirty dealing with the bad ties in the back alley in LA, and suddenly some dude with a rocket launcher shows up, and then Malibu's there with a machine gun, and the whole thing, then all of a sudden the car just has to back out through the Bud Dry truck. One of the things I hadn't noticed before is that there's a yellow boat of a car that has the word taxi written on it that the guy his car lands on. I'd missed that before, but so it was my first time trying it out. So I kind of did like a little open where I had the PM logo in the background, created a stinger, and then had the show, kind of did the video with a little commentary as I was going through it, just that little piece of it. So I'm going to see what the response is to that. Maybe do some others, maybe PM related ones or just action ones. I think the next one I'm thinking about doing is Mission of Justice, that scene where Wincott throws his batons in the middle of the gauntlet. So that might be the next one. But the crazy thing about that sequence in Mission of Justice? Because whenever we watch Wincott, we think, oh, Wincott's an expert at martial arts, blah, 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 blah. Actually, he had never used those, and I don't know the proper terms for the batons. Yeah, batons or something. There is a word for them, but he was taught. Like literally, he showed up on set. Someone handed him the baton. He was like, "I've never done this before." Because we all think of him as a martial artist, but he's not really. I mean, he is. He studied martial arts, but he wasn't a martial artist first. He's always been an actor who does some action. And he was handed the sticks, and he was like, I have no idea what to do with them. He went away with a fight coordinator in the corner. They did some moves. He learned some moves. And then he went right back and shot that sequence. Phenomenal. I mean, phenomenal. Because it's amazing. It comes off like he's been doing this for years. Yeah. Wow, that makes it even more amazing. Yeah. So that's the thinking, because right now the YouTube page, really the YouTube channel is just podcast episodes that get pushed there through the RSS feed, and so you're just getting the podcast episode with the logo, or the DTV Connoisseur podcast, image. So I thought about trying to maybe add some videos. So we'll see. We'll kind of see how that goes there. I mean, we still have the site, we still have the blog. On the site, another PM related thing, we just put Cole S. McKay in the 50 Club. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame soon. He has 58 movies on the site. It wasn't a PM film that we reviewed for that. It was a movie called Savage Salvation that has Robert De Niro, Jack Houston, and John Malkovich. Not the best one, but Emmett Furlow Oasis, Randall Scandal kind of movie. But anyway, it's so funny that Robert De Niro is still doing, because he does, like, Robert De Niro is still doing, like, he just did that big Netflix TV show that was a big deal and shot in New York and was like expensive and everything else. Why does he occasionally, it's not all the time, but occasionally he does like a straight to video actioner.
what money problems does Robert De Niro have?
I know. Well, and the thing is, like, he was a little bit more invested in this one. I was joking in the review that it's like, usually when you see De Niro in these movies, when he's doing his lines and everything, you can see him like mentally installing the kitchen island or pizza or wherever he's getting, he's going to be paying off with this, with this money here. But he's a little bit more engaged here. But yeah, I mean, Cole S. McKay, I mean, we're going to be talking about him coming up here in this movie because he has a part in this movie. But obviously PM Entertainment. I mean, we think Spiro Rosatos because Spiro Rosatos, went on to all that fame. But a lot of the big ones were Cole S. McKay ones as well. And then he just kind of stayed with it. I mean, he was doing a lot of stuff before PM, and then after PM, he's just kind of. I mean, he kind of was in the 2000s doing stuff. And again, like Savage Salvation came out in 2022, and he's stunt coordinator there. So
great mustache as well.
Yes. Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah. Just, all around, just great stuff. I mean, he did stunt work. He was never a stunt coordinator to the extent that Spiro Rosatos was in the big movies, but he was did a lot of stunt work for the Transformers movies and things like that. So yeah, it was kind of good. We gave him his due there. He's going to get in the Hall of Fame officially in the fall. So we have different sort of categories for people, but the 50 Club, 40 Club, and 50 Club, those are for people that are, have so many tags, and he has 58. So he's closing in on Gary Daniels, who has 60, and then Dolph has 71. So, but yeah, so another PM related element there. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause in this movie, what's interesting is on IMDb under stunts, they have Cole S. McKay as the stunt coordinator, the stroke stunts, but then they have the second unit directors as Jerry P. Jacobs and Scott McAvoy. And what's interesting about that is when you look at the Spiro Rosatos PM movies, he is normally both. He is normally both the second unit director and the stunt coordinator. In fact, when I interviewed him and I asked him about movies that he is credited as just a stunt guy for PM, T-Force and some of the earlier ones prior to Last Man Standing, he said no. He didn't do those. He said that's wrong. Yeah. He only counts his stunt coordinator work. Now, I didn't get into it, and he just said no, it didn't have anything to do with T-Force, which is weird because he's listed as having...
He's credited, right?
Yeah, but now he's credited as stunts. He's not credited as coordinator. Right. When I spoke to him, he told me that the big thing he did with PM, the reason why he was so invested in PM outside of his friendship with Joseph, because they're still good friends to this day and very close.
Yeah.
Outside of that, the reason why he stuck it out was it got him his stunt coordinator credit. And in fact, he talked about in our interview how he used to stunt double, weirdly enough, for Robert De Niro and did in Midnight Run, I think, and gave that up on the understanding that he could be a stunt coordinator, because that's really where he wanted to pivot to. Yeah. So we covered Last Man Standing, and we were talking about obviously the big sequence in that movie, which is the armored car motorbike sequence with Wincott jumping from the motorbike into the back of the armored car and then fighting with the guy and then being thrown out the back, holding onto the chain. Whatever, all of that was Spiro. All of that was like Spiro's first time coordinating. So it seems to me like Spiro didn't want, whether he wanted to bring it up or not, he didn't want to talk about any of his just stunt work outside of saying that he doubled for De Niro.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder too if, because it does seem like with PM that there was a kind of, I don't want to say all hands on deck approach, but it seemed like people wanted to get in and help other people. And so I wonder if maybe he didn't do a lot on T-Force, and if he looks at it as like, I was just helping out to do a few things and I got credited. And two, you wonder too, because of, IMDb being a crowdsource kind of thing, if maybe, he wasn't expecting to be credited, and then somebody else who worked on the production added his name in because, they thought it would be important for him. And maybe he didn't see it that way. I mean, we again, talking about Cole S. McKay, I mean, you see movies where he's just sort of listed as stunts, and you wonder if he just was around that day. And and I think the other thing too is it seems like all those stunt coordinators got along, right? They were all friends. It seemed like they were all buddies. So maybe you're just like, hey, you need somebody to do this sequence here. Sure. And maybe all maybe all Spiro did, or maybe any of them did, was maybe just like shimmy and fall down because they got machine gunned. And it's like, well, I don't want a credit for that because all I do is stand there on set for 5 minutes and shimmy and fall down. But it's enough for me to give them a tag on the site.
Of course,
they're still in the movie.
It's wonderful that Cole S. McKay, he's pulling down at the moment 366 credits on IMDb as stunts, and only 21 as second unit or assistant director. So he's still in the thick of it, throwing himself around or doing the driving or doing whatever. I mean, I don't know, like all the things that you do as a stunt guy. And he was the stunt driver on one of my recent favorite movies, The Trust, with Nick Cage and Elijah Wood. That is such a good movie that never gets talked about. But I
got to see that.
Made by the Brewer brothers, Alex and Benjamin, who I interviewed on After Movie Diner, and they would go on to work with Cage again. Well, Alex would. He made Arcadian, which was the monster horror movie that I championed from last year. But yeah, Cole S. McKay has just kept doing it, man. Whether it's, like you say, big movies like Transformers Dark of the Moon, or whether it's Attack of the 50-Foot Cheerleader, made by Kevin O'Neill, starring Treat Williams and Sean Young, apparently. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. The low budget guys bring him in still. He still does those too. And so I wonder, he lives in LA maybe, and they just fly him out to places and he just does his thing. I mean, Savage Salvation didn't have a lot. It's interesting. It's like the end of the movie is where a lot of the stunts come in. It's kind of like, it's a weird movie because the first half of the movie is almost like two people, a couple dealing with addiction. And then the second half is the revenge, death spree kind of thing.
Right.
And so that's where he's obviously making his money there. But I was joking in the review that it's like there's cars all over the place. And I was just wondering, like if he was like going up to Randall Lemon, just being like, are you sure you don't need me to flip any of these here? Because I mean, I could do it,
I'm just itching to flip a fucking car, dude. Let me do it.
Right, exactly.
In terms of PM, though, let's have a look at Cole S. McKay. Let's go deep on Cole S. McKay before we get into Guardian Angel. Let's actually look at what he did. He started off very early with PM. He goes all the way back to the 80s with PM. So he actually does a City Lights movie. He does LA Crackdown with City Lights. So he actually is one of the few people who started before PM became PM, as did Richard Munchkin, Paul Volk, obviously Rick and Joseph, and a few others who would go on.
Addison Randall,
yes, he does some stuff with City Lights. In fact, he doesn't do many later PMs. He does mostly early PMs. Right. But Cole S. McKay, his PM entertainment rundown would be Deadly Breed, Angels of the City, East LA Warriors, Sinners, Cold Fire, Chance, Night of the Wilding, Living to Die, Repo Jake, The Killer's Edge, also known as Blood Money, The Killing Zone, The Art of Dying, so he does all the Wings Hauser ones.
Right.
Quiet Fire, he does The Last Riders, which I was just showing off because I just got the VHS sealed with the PM Entertainment watermark, which is phenomenal.
Yeah.
He does Zipper Face, which is not a PM Entertainment movie, but so many PM Entertainment people were involved in Zipper Face, I kind of count it because I love Zipper. I don't know if you've seen it, but you should definitely watch Zipper Face. It's fantastic. Years ago, Jamie Moe and I covered it on Drunk on VHS, but I love Zipper Face. Out for Blood, Ring of Fire 2, Blood and Steel, Firepower, No Escape, No Return, LA Wars. He did stunt coordinator on Save Me, which you and I covered.
Yes, exactly. Because I was saying, like, that when I was writing the review, I was like, I've got a couple in the can of his to review that's going to push him over 60.
It's not a PM film, but you and I covered it. Right. He did Forced to Kill, Cyber Tracker, A Dangerous Place, Guardian Angel, Lion Strike, also known as Ring of Fire 3, right? Steel Frontier, Hologram Man, The Power Within, To the Limit. He does Guns and Lipstick, which is not a PM film, but Wings Hauser obviously is in that movie.
And another Wings that he does in before that, Victim of Desire, before Steel Frontier. So another one, he gets to throw Johnny Roast Beef out the window.
Cyber Tracker 2, Skyscraper, which you just talked about, Tiger Heart, The Silencers, Dark Breed, Little Bigfoot, Executive Target, Road Ends, The Sender, Land of the Free, Extramarital. A lot of stunts in Extramarital, are there?
Yes, I do.
I haven't seen it yet, but I was assuming. LA Heat, 18 episodes of LA Heat he does. The Stray, a 3rd PM film for Angie Everhart, of course.
Right.
Because she's in Running Red. She did the one that we just covered, Executive Target, and she did The Stray, also with Michael Madsen. Fire Trap, which is still technically a PM film, even though I believe the P and the M had moved on. But yes, it is produced by George Shamir, who was the PM Entertainment sales guy. He was the guy who was out selling movies left and right, being like, we're going to do this with this actor, and it's going to have this many stunts. Give us your money. And Paul Volk, who was obviously 3rd guy behind PM, he produces Fire Trap with Dean Cain, as does George Shamir. So I still count it, because although P and M have moved on, it's still technically a PM film. I feel like PM moved on, Rick Pepin and Joseph May moved on, and then a few guys were still left in the office who were like, well, what do we do with this Dean Cain movie we have? And they were sort of left to kick it over the finish line. That's how I think about it.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was our rundown on Collis McKay. Any more from direct-to-video connoisseur before we dive into Guardian Angel?
No, that's pretty much it. I mean, again, of course, if you want to buy my books, Naughty and Aiden is the newest one. Go to Amazon, look up Naughty and Aiden. Then also my short action novel, Bainbridge. That's going to come up a couple times when we talk about this movie, because there's a couple things in this movie that inspired some things that happened in the book. So, I'll mention those.
Exciting. Okay.
It's the PM Entertainment Bullet Points.
All right, we have money forging drop gone wrong, park base fisticuffs, kick to cuffs, and shootout. Foot chase becomes a car chase. Car flips with sparks. Car then explodes. Lady cops undercover at fancy party as fancier ladies. Host's outrageous hairpiece. Rothrock's enormous red blowout and curled bunts. Some much needed kung fu. Host openly shoots gun into sea of party guests. More martial arts action. Neck snap. Chair broken over back. Cop partner shot in the forehead by host's greased toupee. Van drives through wall of warehouse. Another shootout. Another car chase. Another newsstand needlessly demolished. Car drives through window of random boat showroom that's only seemingly selling a single boat. Nightclub shootout in a nightclub that sells drinks with multiple rainbow colors. Martial arts in a wax museum with multiple hench persons. Marshall Teague wasted by woman he would clearly have seen hiding behind the same side of the pillar that he is. Robert Miano shot into polystyrene sculpture. Prison escape shootout with helicopter. Butler startled by Rothrock's weirdly butt-faded jeans and awkward Lakers cap. Oh, and yes, gun. Rothrock jumps through second-story window and does cool tuck and roll landing. Rothrock beats up hairy shirtless henchmen in front of bikini babes. Broom foo. Maid falls into pool. Barkeep, I'll take one hillbilly flaming crotch to go. Polo track shootout with hitman angry at charcuterie platters. Even more martial arts. Horse chase. Rothrock dragged behind horse. Maid kicked off balcony. Tremendous Rothrock-led bar brawl with scorpion kick and slow-mo hillbilly flying through glass door. Curse Ostendorf's sudden but inevitable betrayal. Even more martial arts fisticuffs and kick-to-cuffs. Jet ski, speedboat, cigarette lady, super speedboat, and helicopter chase. Jump from one speedboat to another. Fight in moving speedboat. Cool hanging from a helicopter. Hero escape. Speedboat explodes. Gratuitous director comedy cameo. Gratuitous ping-pong with bikini babes. Gratuitous close-up of actors pretending to ride horses. Gratuitous close-up of actors pretending to drive speedboats. Gratuitous stunt person's wig loss. Gratuitous, dang it, she was an evil maid reveal. Gratuitous and unnecessary butler death. Gratuitous and exceptionally sleazy softcore saxophone over end credits. Guardian Angel is from 1994. I consider 1994 the first year of what I consider a 3-year run of sort of the pinnacle of PM. So I feel like 94, they're finding their feet. 95 and 96, they really perfect it. And then I think 97, as we were talking about on the episode with Executive Target, they only do 2 big action films in 97. They do Executive Target and The Underground. And I feel after 94, 95, 96, where they are really, as PM, firing on all possible cylinders, with the guys that they started with the Don Wilsons, with the Gary Daniels, with the Jeff Wincotts, with the Cynthia Rothrocks. They're firing on all cylinders for those 3 years with those stars. And then they try their hand at bigger movies. And 97 is the first year I feel like, because you think about Executive Target, it's got Michael Madsen, Roy Scheider, Keith David, Angie Everhart. Like, it's a starrier cast for them at that age, in that time. Michael Madsen was a big deal in the 90s, guys.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So to have him in a movie, and Keith David, of course, who's phenomenal in Executive Target. But this one comes out in 94, and 94 to me is the first year where PM are like, okay, let's do this. And they get Cynthia Rothrock, of course, because they've got this history with Don Wilson. They've got a history with Gary Daniels. Obviously, she's aware of PM Entertainment. So she only does the one PM film, which is, I think, sad in retrospect. I think she herself would have wanted to have gone on and done more. I think she considers this, again, you'll hear this in the interview, but she considers this one of her better straight-to-video movies. Like, it's interesting that after this, she goes on to do Sworn to Justice, which is one of her favorites. The reason why that's interesting is that, for people who don't know, as much as she obviously loves the action and loves being known as an action star, one of the things that I think Cynthia was really interested in at this time was also her acting, was also being seen as feminine rather than as always sort of just the kung fu fighting woman. And obviously Sworn to Justice, which is sort of the closest she gets to doing a 90s erotic thriller meets action film. I think there was part of her in the 90s, in the mid-90s, that was looking to be seen as, a woman, beautiful, sexy, capable of acting different roles, capable of being in thrillers and dramas and holding her own with bigger stars. And so it's interesting because when she talks about Guardian Angel, she talks a lot about the character, the acting, the performance, her fellow actors, rather than just the action scenes, which obviously she also enjoys. Let us get into it then. Matt, as is tradition now on the PM Entertainment Podcast, I hand over the job of describing the plot of Guardian Angel to you, sir, the guest. Give us the lowdown. What is Guardian Angel all about, sir?
So Cynthia Rothrock, she plays a police detective who is busting a counterfeit ring run by Robert Miano. And
PM regular Robert Miano, who's been in damn near every movie we've covered so far. But yes, anyway, carry on.
Right, exactly. Yes. So run by him and his assistant Liddy Denier. And so anyway, so she thinks she's got him, even though she loses her partner, who I think is Kathy Long. She's not credited, but it looks like Kathy Long is her partner, who gets killed when they go undercover to try to get these plates. And what ends up happening is that they end up kind of, her and her husband, fiance, Marshall Teague, they kind of track...
Another PM regular, Marshall Teague, who we talked about on A Dangerous Place a lot, yeah.
Right, exactly. Through a series of beating up informants, they get a meeting with Liddy Dernier. They think it's going to be Miano, actually. And when they show up, they go to arrest them. So it's Dernier's, her and her team, which I think Dale Jacoby is one of her thugs that's there. But anyway, after beating everybody up, Denier escapes, and she's got Marshall Teague at gunpoint and decides, hey, I'm just going to blow his head off. She just shoots him and kills him. So she goes to prison. Rothrock is inconsolable. She has to leave the force and go live in a trailer somewhere with a dog who she sometimes takes care of, sometimes doesn't. but Denier gets out of prison, and some wealthy playboy, asks Rothrock to be his bodyguard, and we find out it's because they had a relationship, him and Denier. So this whole thing is sort of unraveling, but she's trying to get to the bottom of it. They're trying to stop Denier because she's just out killing all kinds of people. They're protecting the plates. They don't know where the plates are. It's kind of that MacGuffin kind of thing. But in the end, the whole thing just ends in a big shootout at the mansion, and then a shootout on boats, and explosions, and everybody lives happily ever after.
Yeah, so it's part revenge movie. What's nice about it is that, yes, there is a through line crime MacGuffin, which is these plates, right? And this French woman who has been helping Miano, why is Miano in like a mental institution and being all weird and stuff? What drove him mad again?
So he gets shot by Denier. Remember when she gets set up,
right, yes.
Right? Because that's how she gets arrested. She goes to shoot him.
He has a polystyrene sculpture, which is very obviously polystyrene, right? And it all kind of falls apart. Yeah.
Yeah, when she shoots him, he falls into it, and the whole thing collapses.
Right.
And so then the brother's hiding him in this mental institution, which it looked very like MTV, like when you go in it. I think we'll probably talk a bit about the cinematography in this, because it is a little bit unique in spots. But so that's why Miano was there. It was sort of like this. It was like a big reveal midway through that he's actually still alive, because in a PM flick that would kill anybody else,
right?
Just but he survives.
Well, it's Miano, so Miano has to survive.
Right, exactly.
Even in Executive Target, where Angie Everhart is killing the rest of her criminal gang, Miano still survives.
Right.
Which is great, because Robert Miano, he is in a ton of PM flicks, and he does crop up, as is Marshall Teague, as is a lot of the people in this movie. But Cynthia Rothrock she's living in a trailer, as you said, in a Winnebago type thing, wearing a lot of plaid shirts and nothing else. She gets called up by this guy who likes to play ping pong with bikini babes. That's his whole thing. Is he plays a lot of ping pong with bikini babes, and he has a weird butler, which is phenomenal. The butler played by
the butler is John O'Leary. Clayton was Clayton the butler.
Yes, I believe so.
Yes, John O'Leary. He doesn't have a picture on IMDb.
No, but fantastic nonetheless. So, he has a butler. He plays ping pong with bikini babes. He calls up Rothrock, who shows up in the weirdest outfit. I get that they're trying to grunge her down a bit, but who picked out those jeans? Because remember, faded jeans were a thing, right?
Right.
Like pre-faded jeans.
10 years after this. Yeah, about 10 years after this, they were huge, right? With but on the knees and stuff like that.
Right. But what's weird about this is, and I don't know if you ever remember this, but like when you would go to buy pre-faded jeans, if you went to a cheaper place, a Kohl's or a TJ Maxx or something like that, right? The fades would be in weird places, let's just say.
Yeah.
Right. In like Levi or Wrangler or one of the bigger guys, the fades would be, like you say, on the knee or on the thigh or on the shin or whatever. But the cheaper ones, the fades were like on the butt, on the back of the knee, on whatever. It was just wherever they thought they could like fade the down. They put her in a pair of excessively baggy, like it's boot cut kind of jeans. They're not flares. They're like boot cut. They're like big kind of workman jeans with a faded butt. And the only problem with that is that obviously, as you're watching a film in which the lead is a female, you're going to look at the butt because they've given her a big white butt. And as she's walking through the mansion to get to the bikini babes and get through the bikini babes, to get to the big wealthy guy who she's going to have a will they, won't they kind of back and forth relationship with eventually, they've got her in these fucking jeans. And I'm sorry, you're just looking at her butt going, why is her butt white, the rest of the jeans blue? It just looks weird. It just looks weird. As does the purple cap and the baggy shirt. Like, none of it. There's a way to, like, grunge up a woman so she doesn't look like, like Cynthia does at the early part of the movie where she's all dressed up to go to the party. She's got curlers in her hair. She's got the big blue evening gown on. She's going to go in. She's going to chat up this rich guy. You know, there's a way to grunge that one. In fact, when she's wearing the plaid shirt in the Winnebago, like, that looks great. Like, give her a plaid shirt and some Daisy Dukes and, you know, a backwards baseball cap, whatever you need to do. But, like, whatever they dress her in, that one scene where she shows up at the Bikini Babe mansion, it's awful. It really is. It's just terrible.
No, I mean, the Lakers hat that she has on, it's so cheap. It looks like, you know, I don't know if when you go to Hollywood, like if you're driving through Hollywood, you see these signs that say shirts 10 for $10.
Yes.
And then you get there and it's tiny little letters that says kids over it.
Right.
But it's like they sent a PA there to get her a hat.
Oh yeah, no. If you're in Hollywood and Vine, like if you're on Hollywood Boulevard, almost every other shop is a cheap gift shop, or it used to be. I mean, I haven't been to LA. I haven't been to Hollywood and Vine in a few years, but like it's mostly cheap. It's like when you're in Times Square. If you go 2 blocks towards Hell's Kitchen, it's all you know, knockoff, back of the truck type merchandise for New York sports teams, for you know, whatever it is. You're right. This looks like a Lakers hat that was bought on Hollywood and Vine for like 50 cents.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, like the running joke is that, oh, she's the plumber, right? All these bikini clad women ask her, she's the plumber. Right. Oh, the cabana, the toilet's really clogged or whatever. She's like, I'm not the plumber. I'm not, you know, whatever. And so, you know, but like in true PM fashion, right? The I'm not the plumber comes into play, you know, where somehow she's got a car phone, right? She's living in a Winnebago, but she's got a car phone. And while she's like talking to the police captain, her old police captain, who's played by Anna Dalva, a great name Goddard that she has. She's kind of like a cross between Linda Evans and Sharon Gless, I think. She
looks like Beetlejuice without the face makeup, because she wears a big black and white striped blazer throughout the movie, which makes her look like Beetlejuice on his off hours.
Right, exactly. That makes no sense. And she's like calling her saying, hey, you didn't tell me that, you know, what's her name got out of prison. She's like, well, why was I supposed to tell you? You're not on the force anymore. And then she sees a second plumbing truck go by, and she goes, because she saw one leave as she was leaving the premises. She sees one. She's like, oh, wait, 2 plumbers trucks. That means one of them's got to be a killer, right? You know, and of course, he shows up, and I mean, the guy who's pretending to be the plumber looks like a poor man's Matt Hannon from Samurai Cop. Just a total himbo, which is great. I mean, you just want to see Rothrock kick him through a window, and I wanted to see her kick him into the pool.
Right.
But unfortunately, she kicks him into the maid, who then falls in the pool. And it's like, really, you've got to have the person who's working at that moment that has to deal with that indignity? Like, I don't know what they were thinking with that one, Peter.
Matt, caring about the little guy. Caring about yeah.
So I guess I shouldn't be so upset, because either that was the impetus for the maid later on to do, you know, what she does when she tries to kill Rothrock later. That was either the impetus for it, or, you know, she deserved.
Don't they get a new maid, because that maid fell in
you're
the
right.
pool.
They didn't recognize her. Right. That poor maid probably got swimmer's ear and had to take the day off, and that's
she got swimmer's ear, or you know, went blind because of the chlorine or whatever, or maybe the bikini babe bikini top snapped off and flicked her in the eye and she went blind or something. But either way, because yes, you're right. There's a maid later on who is a plant, an evil maid. Look out! It's an evil maid,
exactly,
which is fantastic. I mean, everyone's all the people that you think are evil in this movie turn out to be pretty good. And all the people who are fairly innocuous turn out to be evil. That's pretty much. But what I love about this movie, though, is because I think it's a really good plot that I haven't seen in another movie, which is this. Playboy used to date the bad woman, the woman who's going to come after everyone and try and kill everyone, right? So he hires the woman who's trying to avenge the death of her husband as his bodyguard. I mean, that's a really good, like, just logically speaking, because there's two ways this PM movie could go, right? It could be like Rothrock's down on a luck. She finds out what's her name's broken out of prison and goes after her, right? That's the Liam Neeson movie that we've all seen, right?
Right.
Or there's she's down on a luck. Her fiance was killed, blah, 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 blah. She takes a job as a security guard for the guy and ends up falling in love with the guy, right? That's the other movie. PM just goes, put those two together. And it sort of really works. Like it works as a concept. It works as, I think the only thing that I would say about the concept is that Mr. Millionaire, Hobbs, played by Daniel McVicker, Mr. Sleaze, Mr. Millionaire, Mr. Hangout with the Bikini Babes, Mr. Ping Pong with the Bikini Babes, that guy, the only thing I would say is that the moment Rothrock shows up and moves into his house to be his bodyguard, the Bikini Babes are nowhere to be seen. They're in that one opening sequence, and then he's just like, fine, I'm going to get rid of all of the Bikini Babes for Rothrock. Which, look, I'm getting rid of all of the Bikini Babes for Rothrock too. Listen, I'm with him. Rothrock is my gal. Like, I'm backing her all the way. I'm not saying that I wouldn't give up the Bikini Babes for Cynthia Rothrock, because I would, and you'd be a fool not to, because she's got a mean kick on her, scorpion kick on her. But I don't believe that McVicker or Hobbs would give them up that quickly. Because, yes, there's chemistry right off the bat, but it's not mutual until much later in the film. But the Bikini Babes disappear too soon for my liking. I would have liked to have seen more Bikini Babes. Matt, your take on the Bikini Babes.
So the Bikini Babes are like the dog. They were inconvenient to the plot, and so they just disappeared. I mean, the dog, I was like, when she first moves into the house, I'm like, well, where's the dog? Why is the dog not jumping on the bed? Why is the dog not doing stuff?
Right.
And then at the end of the movie, when there's like sort of this like little period of time where he tells her to leave because the butler was killed, and he doesn't want her to possibly get killed too. She goes back to the trailer and she has this like soliloquy with the dog. And I was like, wait, the dog was there the whole time? Who's taking care of the dog? Like, but it's a PM thing. It's like, we don't care about the dogs. We don't care about Bikini Babes, right? Bikini Babes just come and go. and so it's like, oh, okay, we paid the extra fee for this day. We're not paying it for this other day. So that's it. I mean, some of the Bikini Babes were credited. Some of them, I think one of them is a yellow bikini, pink bikini, and yellow bikini. Yes. So Luann Fairley plays Pink Bikini. Tanya Lawson was Yellow Bikini as Tanya Offer. So I don't know if she's gotten married since then and changed her name. So they were like, yeah, we're not paying out any more SAG fees to these Bikini Babes that are going to start putting their credits in our movies.
Tanya Lawson.
Just get them out of here.
On IMDb, known for Guardian Angel, Pacific Blue, and Dangerous Seductress.
Yeah.
So everyone needs to run
like,
and look at Dangerous Seductress. Although it looks, it sleep with her and you sleep forever is the tagline to Dangerous Seductress. It's directed by H. Djalil. And synopsis says the evil queen returns to possess an American girl who she orders to go out and claim victims to sate a bloodlust. And Tanya Lawson was also in that as Tanya Offer. So look out, 1992's Dangerous Seductress. Figure it out. Anyway, yes, yellow bikini, pink bikini. Yep.
Right. Yes. Yeah. But that's what it is. I mean, it's like, it's interesting because I was recently seeing on Facebook, Fredo and Ray will sometimes kind of give anecdotes about his movies.
Right.
And he was talking about, I think it was Air Boss that he was talking about, where he said the thing he hated about airplane movies was that, he didn't know what to do with the passengers. And this one, I guess they lock them in an airlock or something like that. And he's like, that was how we got rid of them. And so it's like this thing of like, anything that's like difficult or you don't want to deal with, you get rid of it. And I guess in this movie, it was like, yeah, we need to get rid of all of these Bikini Babes.
Yeah. Well, listen, it's absolutely fine because obviously we're invested in the Rothrock McVicker will they, won't they relationship. But I think we should have had one more scene with the bikini babes.
Yes.
Instead of we get a lot of scenes with John O'Leary as Clayton, the butler. I could have done with one scene with more bikini babes.
Right. And again, me as an animal lover, I'm just the whole time just thinking like, is this poor dog waiting to get let out? Is who's feeding the dog? Right. And again, I guess you just have to suspend that for these PM films that, they just thought it was cool to have her talk to a dog. And it's like the rest of the time, the dog doesn't exist.
Yeah. Very, what a shame. Also, it's a shame that Marshall R. Teague was cast as the fiance, because I feel like I would have loved to have seen Teague and Denier as some kind of evil couple.
Yeah.
I think Teague was underused in the movie.
That was one of my biggest complaints when I saw this the first time when I reviewed it on the site. I didn't like the fact that Teague was in and out so quickly. That was, one of the things about this overall with this movie is I appreciate it more now. I think some of the things we're going to talk about are things that I didn't appreciate when I saw it. When I saw it the first time, I just thought, okay, this is a serviceable Rothrock actioner. Like, it does what you need it to do, but it's not anything special. And I think, but one of my complaints was like, oh, we've got Marshall Teague. What are we doing here? Right. When they need
Teague, and if I don't get Teague, I'm disappointed. That's what we're saying, right?
Yes, I didn't come. I mean, again, like you talked about. I mean, we get all these scenes with people that we don't necessarily need, like the butler. Ken McLeod. The funny thing about Ken McLeod is that a year after this, he's playing a high school student in Showdown. So he's already in his 30s. We already know that, but he's going to play a high school student next year.
He's the one he's the unnecessarily aggressive and negative police guy who hates Rothrock for no reason.
Right, he hates her just because she's a woman on the force. He doesn't think that there should be women on the police force, and it's like, it's like a some kind of stereotype thing that they wanted this thread throughout the movie that like, well, she can't be a police officer because she's a woman. She can't be a bodyguard because she's a woman. Turns out she can do all these things. She's much more capable than anybody else at doing these things. And Ken McLeod was the sort of the negative Nancy the whole time, right? And we just wanted to see her kick him through a plate glass window at some point. That was really it was all building up to that.
It was building up to the McLeod McKay, which I'm mixing. Ken McLeod's his real name, and McKay is Cynthia Rothrock's character's name.
Her name is McKay. That's right. Yeah,
his name is Ostendorf.
That's right.
The names in this movie are incredible. So Rothrock is McKay, Daniel McVicker is Hobbs, Liddy Denier is just Nina, Marshall R. Teague is just Nick. Ken McLeod is Ostendorf. I mean, his name's McLeod. Why are you giving him like what is that? Like a Northern European, like Slavic name, like Ostendorf?
Right.
What is that? Or German, maybe, I suppose. John O'Leary is Clayton. That's fine. That's the butler, I guess. Anna Dalver is just Goddard. Yeah, it's weird. It's just everyone. Robert Miano is David. Brian Brophy is Slick. Matthew Walker is Lippy. The first 20 people in the movie just have one name. And then Art Camacho, who is only in the opening sequence as the rival gang of money launderers or whatever they are, is Jimmy Lee. He actually gets a full name.
Well, the funny thing is he plays two people in this because he's Jimmy Lee in that opening scene, and then he's in the bar brawl. And Cynthia Rothrock smashes him into like a post or something at the bar.
Yeah.
He's wearing a flannel shirt. And so he's just there twice. I mean, Dale Jacoby, who did a good number of PM flicks, he just gets Nina's partner as his name. He gets an unceremonious death, right? He wants to hit his bong one last time, and she won't let him. She shoots him before he can hit the bong one last time with his great jeans that he's got on. And I mean, yeah, somebody that they just, Dale Jacoby, he played these characters that was just like they just pulled them off of Venice Beach. If it wasn't the same person every time, you'd think they just found a new person that they were getting. But no, Dale Jacoby was there,
No, but I have to say that there's two things going for Guardian Angel. One is, three if you count Rothrock. But in terms of movie making, there are two things going for Guardian Angel. One is that it has a decent central premise. Like the premise adds up. The premise is not loose or flimsy. It makes sense. It's an ABC plot. It works out. It's all good. The second thing it has going for it is that either by design or just by fortuitous circumstance, every action sequence is different. They vary the action sequences. So while this doesn't have the level of shootouts that PM would do in 95, 96, 97, it doesn't have the level of car chases that PM Entertainment would do in 95, 96, 97. It has a bit of everything, though. So it has a little bit of a shootout at the beginning. It has a little bit of a car chase at the beginning. It has a bar brawl, as you mentioned. It has and by the way, that's my favorite scene in the whole movie is the bar fight. I absolutely love the bar fight. It has a phenomenal speedboat helicopter chase to end the movie. Absolutely fantastic. And they don't do a lot of water stunts in PM films, so this is unique. We get a horse chase sequence, which is again different for PM. There's not a lot of horse chases that PM do. We get plenty of martial arts. We get plenty of fisticuff shootouts, and those are all the good things. So those are I think it has a really good plot. It switches up the action every time they do a set piece, and Rothrock is legitimately good in it. In fact, I think Rothrock and McVicker do make a compelling, good chemistry, fun back and forth. You know what I mean? I would have liked to have seen McVicker in more of these movies because I think he was pretty good at doing the kind of cheesy schmo who happened upon some money and happened upon some bikini babes and happened upon Rothrock kind of thing, which is great. I think that's all great. The only problem I see with Guardian Angel is I don't feel, after I'm done watching it, that it adds up to the sum of its parts. Do you know what I mean by that? I think it has really, really, really strong parts. I just don't think as a whole it 100% works. But we have to look at it as a bit of you can't stack it up against Last Man Standing and Rage and some of these other ones because it's 1994. And 1994 is the precursor to all those movies. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I totally get it. I mean, I think the things that help this movie that I think, with it being, like you said, this early period is, I think, one, you've got Art Camacho and Richard Norton as fight choreographers. And I think that's a really important thing because then, Rothrock's fighting isn't lost.
The reason why Norton gets the credit is because Norton was the one who convinced Rothrock to accept Camacho.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Okay.
Well, that's what Camacho says on the Blu-ray. So Camacho says that Richard Norton brought Camacho in, and Camacho had already faced a little bit of pushback from some of the stunt teams.
Right, exactly.
Because they were like, well, we do the stunts. And he's like, right, but I just do the fights. Like, it's different. Yeah. They eventually all figured it out, and Camacho, very, very complimentary about PM. He's just talking about the thing. When his story is, and Rothrock does not say that, and Rothrock says it was great working with Camacho and everything was fine. Camacho's story from the Blu-ray is that Norton brought Camacho to Rothrock and was like, give Camacho a chance, basically.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I mean, the thing that was when the interview that you did with Art Camacho, which was that on the Dangerous Place episode? Yeah, what a great interview. I mean, because he talked about that, about how when Merhi first brought him on, that the stunt coordinators were not happy with it, and of course, we think of PM as this sort of this collaborative thing where everybody's doing all this stuff, but at that time it was considered that was the stunt coordinator's purview, was the fights. Right. And, Art Camacho kind of was coming more from a martial arts, but and I guess at least Rothrock would know because that you would do the fight coordinator might be different in Hong Kong, but it's one of those things that once they figured it out, that he wasn't there to take up their car chases or anything like that he was bringing something different. And I think also too, probably when they saw that the fights looked better when he did them than, the coordinators, but it kind of makes sense too that Rothrock would be like, well, who is this Camacho guy? Because he was new at that time. He was still kind of, making his way. But I think he had worked with Norton before that. And so that's why Norton would know, hey, this guy's the real deal. He can put your scenes together the way you want them to. And I think the other thing too is I think Camacho, it seems like he gets a lot of input from the people that he's working with as well. That's why I think he's worked with pretty much everybody.
Yeah. And by the way, Cynthia was nothing but complimentary about him in the interview, as you'll hear.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
You know, and look, I do not envy Art Camacho at all. He had to step into a role where he was working with top-level martial artists, at the top of their game, who had done multiple movies, both here and abroad, and again was fighting this situation with the stunt teams where they were like, well, why is this guy coming in? Like, we can coordinate whatever you need. That Art Camacho not only survived but excelled and continued to be a force for good in the action film community, to the point where he's done just about every job there is to do on a set to do with an action film. Fair play to him, because it can't have been easy half the time.
No.
All right, do we have some interviews for you? That's right, we have pulled out all the stops for our Guardian Angel special episode this week. We have none other than the Guardian Angel herself, Cynthia Rothrock, here talking all about the film, all about PM Entertainment, and talking all about her brand new film, Black Creek, which, as of recording this right now, is going to be live tomorrow on all of the streaming services where you can rent it or buy it. And I strongly suggest, from seeing all the trailers, the stills, and talking to Cynthia about it, that you do exactly that. Go, go, go support Black Creek. It looks phenomenal. Cynthia Rothrock, Richard Norton, and Don the Dragon Wilson in a Western Kung Fu epic. Who doesn't want to see that? Then we have director of the film, Richard Munchkin. That's right, Richard Munchkin, who was one of our first interviews, and yet this is only his first episode of the PM Entertainment podcast that he's appearing on. So Richard will be appearing several times again in the future. However, this is the first of his films that we're covering. So he talks a little bit about the making of Guardian Angel. And then finally, we have a small clip from Rick Pepin, who did some second unit cinematography on the film, specifically the filming of that epic speedboat chase at the end of the movie. So if that isn't exciting enough, I don't know what to tell you. The PM Entertainment podcast, my goodness, have we not outdone ourselves? So sit back, relax, you know the score. There'll be a couple of adverts, you'll hear the interviews, and then we'll go back to the show. You're old hats at this now. You've listened to 11 other episodes. You know what's coming, right? This isn't the first episode you've dipped in. You've listened to the other 11 episodes, right? Okay, if this is the first episode, then you will get a couple of adverts, because we need to pay for this show and be able to afford hosting and all that other good stuff. Please ignore them. Don't do anything the adverts say. I don't even like having to put them in the show, but there they are. It is what it is. It's a necessary evil. Then you will get the interviews. They'll be fantastic. They'll be interesting. They'll tell you stuff you've never heard of before. It's going to be so exciting. It's going to be so fantastic. And then we'll go back to the rest of the show and we'll finish out our review and our points and our rankings and all that good stuff for Cynthia Rothrock's Guardian Angel. And lastly, it is just left for me to say, don't forget, if you love this show and if you are excited and surprised and impressed by all the things that we've managed to accomplish with the show and all the people we've managed to interview and all that other good stuff, support us completely for free by rating and reviewing us. The best place to do that is on Apple Podcasts. Our stats show that most people listen to us on Apple Podcasts. So please rate and review us. If you happen to listen to us on YouTube because you are an Android or a Google user, then please just leave comments, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Please, please, please. It makes such a huge difference to an independent podcast like ourselves, and it does help the algorithm and it does get the word out. If you just write, hey, love the podcast, 5 stars, and put it up on Apple Podcasts, or if you like, subscribe, and comment on any one of our YouTube episodes, that would be incredible. Anyway, enough hanging around and bleating by me. Let's hear what Miss Rothrock has to say. Thanks again, Cynthia, for being on the show and for agreeing to be on the PM Entertainment podcast. We're very happy to have you today.
Well, it's good to be here.
And before you did Guardian Angel with PM in 1994, were you aware of PM Entertainment? I know that Don Wilson, who's a friend of yours, had worked with them pretty extensively.
Yes, I was aware because I knew that they were a big company that did a lot of action. And I was friends with some of the stunt coordinators on that. So I was familiar with their work. So I was excited, actually, when they called me to do Guardian Angel.
Yeah, did they reach out to you, or was it through it wasn't through the martial arts networking then?
No, actually, they reached out to me and sent me the script, and I really liked it. So yeah, that's kind of how that all came about.
Great. And what were your first impressions of Jacobsen Hart's script compared to some of the other films you were doing in the 90s at the time?
Well, it was a little different, because I just came back. I think I did my last movie in Hong Kong in '92, and it was a nice story. It was different. It wasn't like The Girl Next Door. This woman had a little bit of class. I love the title, Guardian Angel.
Yeah.
And it's been a long time since I've done that movie. So what's good for me is that last year I went to Germany for like an appearance, and they screened Guardian Angel.
Yeah.
And I got to see it after all this time, and I really didn't know what to expect because I've done over 70 movies, and
Yes.
usually when you do a movie, you watch it once or maybe twice, and that's it. You don't go back to it. So I forgot a lot about the film, and I was so surprised. I really enjoyed it. I was going in thinking, I don't know what to expect from this, and I think from looking at that film, what attracted me to it is that it was a very good character. It was a character, that I haven't portrayed before. And I think, I was like, wow, yeah, this is going to be great, and they were interested in, when I looked at it, like the wardrobe, it's probably the best wardrobe I wore up to that point from any of the movies that I've done.
Right. Well, you got to kind of wear the whole gamut, because at some points, especially when you go undercover at that party at the beginning, you're in very fancy dresses and sort of very feminine, and then when you kind of hit the skids, your fiance gets killed or whatever, and you go and live in the trailer, you're sort of in more sort of tomboyish clothes. And then later on, you're in riding gear doing the horse riding sequence. I mean, there's sort of lots of. I think what I love about Guardian Angel and sort of what I love about PM is they really seemed to, when they knew they had someone like yourself, someone with a name and a lineage and a prestige and everything else. I think they really tailored the film to you to some extent. There are multiple stunt sequences, multiple action sequences. They're all different. There isn't one action sequence that is sort of the same as the next. You get car chases and shootouts and bar fights and horse riding and, the big speedboat chase at the end. It sort of covers the gamut of everything I would imagine an action star would want to do on screen. Is that sort of how you felt?
Right. And what I think they really took a care about the character, not only because up until then it was just how much I can fight, just the
Right.
fighting aspect of it. But looking back at it, they really, like, I was like, wow, they did nice makeup on there and they did my hair really nice. That must have
Yeah.
took time putting all those curls in it. So for me, it was such a treat to have someone more interested in the look as well as fighting, and like you said, yeah, the fights were all different because, when I go back on these things, I'm like, oh, it wasn't a Hong Kong movie. What are these fights going to look like,
Right.
And I was like, what? I really, really enjoyed it. And I thought the fights were really good, and I'm glad that I went back and saw that movie after what, like how many years is that? Like almost
Yeah, it's 31 years old now.
Yeah.
The film is 31 years old. And I know that you were over in Germany because Claudio Ulrich, who I've also been speaking to, obviously, because he's putting the movies out on Blu-ray. And I actually just did a video review of the Blu-ray because he just sent me the Guardian Angel Blu-ray that they're doing over there for Focus Media. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about this movie getting, remastered and widescreen and updated and available for everyone to see. I know you did some extras for the Blu-ray.
Yeah, I love that because, even like that film there, the fights still hold up. It was a nice story. And it's great because you have this new generation that are becoming familiar, with who you are. Of course you have the fans from all the way back then,
Yeah.
but a new generation gets to see that. And I think it's great because you're thinking like, 1994, like you said, there weren't too many female lead action stars at that time.
No, not at all. I mean, certainly not in sort of the martial arts vein that you had, cut your career out of. I think everyone always kind of points to actors who did one or two action films like Sigourney Weaver or Linda Hamilton. But I always say, well, they weren't really action stars. Yes, they had a franchise that they did some action in, but, that wasn't. When you say Sigourney Weaver, you don't think action star. I don't, certainly. You know what I mean? I mean, the Alien franchise is fantastic. But if I think female action star, I think I think Pam Grier. Like, these are the names that come to mind because you guys really carved out your career in that genre. And I think both of you, Pam in the 70s and you in the 80s, kind of led the way for I think, a new kind of feminism almost on film, without getting too deep and pretentious about it. But that's how it comes across to me as someone who's always loved to see films, genre films with interesting and diverse stars rather than just always the Stallone or Arnie model. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And I agree with you, because there's so many people that are considered like an action star, whether male or female, but like you, I think to me, an action star is someone that can really fight,
Right.
and that's just how I feel too, because you could do stunts or you could do this kind of stuff. And for me, I'm so critical on action movies. It's kind of like someone said they were a chef and they don't like to go to other restaurants because they criticize the food too much. And I'm like such a I'm looking at everything. I'm going, oh, that was a mess, or oh, that was a miss there. That punch didn't work. That kick didn't work. Oh, their foot was in the wrong position. They would have broke their foot. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, oh, that was a double there, that was that. And it kind of spoils it for me. And so when I do see a really good action picture where someone really knows how to fight, I get excited because a lot of times we don't see that. And I think the general public don't really notice these little things, like if you're really a fighter, that you notice in film.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that the fans of the 80s, it's really that 80s and 90s golden era that allowed martial arts. I mean, America kind of, Hong Kong had already been doing it, and Japan had already been doing it in the 60s and 70s, obviously, and then they became very successful. And then in America, obviously, in the 80s was really when all the studios sort of started looking around and saying, well, we need our action star, whatever it is, you know what I mean? And
Right.
People like Van Damme and Seagal and Jeff Speakman and Don the Dragon Wilson, yourself, Gary Daniels, people like this started to do not just one or two kind of novelty martial arts pictures, but having whole careers that continue today, which just continually makes us as fans and action film appreciators very, very happy. So you work on Guardian Angel with Art Camacho. I believe it was the first time you worked with Art. Is that correct?
I think so. I believe, yeah, that is the first time because I know I did the China O'Briens and I did martial law before then,
Yeah.
and I think that came around that time there. So yeah, I believe that's the first time I met Art. I remember Cole McKay was the stunt coordinator.
Yeah. Cole McKay did all the big, yeah. And then
Yes,
Art
he
was
did the big stunts and stuff
yeah.
like that. And first time I met him, and it was such a different era then. And I think PM was known for like their car, wrecks, like where they go put
Yes.
the ramp in, and the stuntman is really in there, and they flip this car, and you see this car spinning through the air and crashing, and the stunt person get out. Nowadays I don't think they do that. I think it's all CGI. But I think I was so excited to work with PM then is because they really, really did like that kind of action before. Where not too many companies were doing that, especially in the United States.
Yeah, exactly. So I was actually going to ask separately, but sort of with Art Camacho, how collaborative was it? Because obviously you, with your experience and your history, not only obviously knows what you're capable of and knows how you can fight, but obviously at this point you've done, 30 films or whatever it is you've done by this point in the mid 90s, maybe 20, 25 films by the mid 90s. You also know about how to set up a scene and how to stage a scene and where you work best in the scene. So was it collaborative? Did you guys butt heads? Did you kind of figure it out? How was you and Art kind of staging some of those more fist and kick fights? Not so much the big stunts, but sort of the fight sequences with Art. How was sort of setting those up?
Yeah, I think that was more of a collaboration. And it kind of works like that probably with most of my films. Like Art would put the general idea toward it and do a basis. And then I would come in and say, okay, let's change this, let's do that. And the good thing about Guardian Angel with Art is, he would go, oh, yeah, I love that. That's great. Yeah, that's good. So definitely had a major input in the fight scenes, or, oh, I think this would look a little better here. This is stronger. So I think it definitely was like a team collaboration on the fights.
Great. Well, they all came out fantastic. I think one of my favorites is probably the bar fight, just because I always love it when a slightly more modern movie kind of throws it back to that kind of Western thing. And obviously, I want to talk to you about Black Creek as well. I want to make sure that we talk about that and promote that as well, which is coming up on Apple TV. But you got to do a good old fashioned Western style bar fight in this. What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to go back now to think of the bar fight. I from when I look other than the China O'Brien movies, right?
Yeah.
I did the martial laws and the fast getaways and this and that, and I just think that these fight scenes were a little more elaborate. I was shocked when I saw it again in Germany because I'm totally a big fan of like Hong Kong action, and
Yeah.
when I came back and started doing after China O'Brien, the action was to me quite simple. It wasn't as extravagant or complicated. And I think because, you're looking at time, I don't remember how long we shot that movie for, but I'm going to guess it was like 6 to 8 weeks. And, I'm coming out of Hong Kong shooting movies 8.5 months. So you're doing a fight scene, you might be doing that for 2 weeks at a time.
Right.
Like in Yes, Madam, my ending fight scene took a month, and I think just, for a film with short period of time action, the action was really good. I was expecting it to be, a little bit more Americanized, very simple, very easy, okay, let's do this one take. But, like I said, they didn't rush this film, they took their time. And I think they really, really wanted to come out with, a good film, not just let's just,
Oh, yeah.
just sell it on Cynthia, let's sell it on the action, make some money. I think, they really, put a lot of thought and, work into doing Guardian Angel, which I love. I love that.
Sure. And as we talked about earlier, you work with Cole S. McKay as the stunt coordinator. Obviously, Guardian Angel finishes with this big speedboat chase, but there's also sequences of a car chase at the beginning, and there's the horse chase sequence that you do as well. How much did you work with Cole on that? And were you still doing some of those yourselves, or was that kind of taken on by the second unit and you had a stunt double for some of the biggest, longer, wider scenes?
Yeah, I did all the action myself, but there's a funny story about that. And I never forgot it. I remember, back in the day when we used to do these movies, you used to go and look at dailies, and you would look at the film as they were editing it. And on the horse chase, there's a long shot of me going across, right?
Yeah.
I'm on the horse, but on the long shot, I'm not. That was probably that was Cole, doing second unit while we were shooting something else. And as I'm watching it, and I don't know, you probably didn't notice this either. The stunt woman's that was riding the horse wig came off and it's laying on the ground. And I remember going to them, said, oh my God, you can't use that shot. You could see that wig on the ground. And they're like, no, with all the sound and the music, nobody's going to notice that. So here I am sitting in Germany and I know this scene is coming up and I'm like, okay, watch this horse scene. Tell me if you see something funny, right? And they don't see it. They don't see it at all. And I said, the wig on the stunt person came off. And on the ground. So, yeah, it's funny. After all those years, I just never forgot that, and it's funny watching it. So if you guys, they watch it again, you look for that. It's pretty fun.
Yeah.
It just comes out. Looks like a porcupine or something, like laying in the middle of the grass.
I mean, I've seen the film enough, and I sort of have seen that the wig comes off. It goes by so quickly, you kind of don't notice. And I'm certainly, suspending disbelief as I watch a movie like this, so it's not too big a problem. But yes, sometimes, ever so occasionally. I mean, normally PM are pretty good considering how quick, run and gun, cheap, and so on that they made their films. I mean, it's one of the reasons I love them. They achieved so much on such small budgets most of the time, and it's one of the reasons why I really love PM is that they have this sort of incredible ethos in the way that Roger Corman did or Cannon did in a way. Yet they also managed to get so much of themselves and so much of the stars in the film as well, their thoughts, their opinions, their emotions, even though they're very often, cheap B movies to some extent, or the way they were put together. So we don't mind those little accidents sometimes. They're very rare. It's not often that PM kind of go, it doesn't matter. They normally do sort of make sure. But, occasionally you'll see that, like, the guy driving the getaway car or whatever is not the same guy as the lead actor or whatever. I mean, when we were used to watching films, I grew up with Bond films, so you could tell when Roger Moore's stunt double came in and Roger went back to his trailer for a cigar. You could tell the difference between the two. So we got very used to growing up watching these films where if a stunt performer is in there instead of the lead actor, you just kind of suspend disbelief and keep going. But do you remember much about that like high speed boat chase at the end? Was that exciting for you? Had you done? I'm trying to remember all your Hong Kong movies. Had you done a lot of kind of ocean-based or water-based stunts at that point?
I did in Magic Crystal.
Right. Yes,
I
of course.
remember Magic Crystal. We were in
Yeah.
Greece shooting. We had a boat chase too. Yeah, no, I love that. Anything, that's adventurous, that's not martial arts, I love to do. So I remember I was like, oh, this is so much fun, on this boat.
Yeah.
It definitely adds, to the look of the film, and it makes it look like it's like a little more expensive than, maybe what it was.
Oh, of course. I mean, whenever you can throw in a great set piece often PM will use like a school bus or a big oil tank, or they'll use like some vehicle that you're not used to seeing just to give the action sequence or the car chase or whatever a little visual flair, something that you don't. I think after Speed came out, everyone's like, oh, okay, we have to do action on different vehicles, not just cars like in the 70s, So yeah, they often do that. So it's great that you were able to do the big boat scene, because they don't do a lot of boat stuff in their movies. So doing a big action set piece on a boat, I think sets Guardian Angel nicely apart. So you were also saying earlier you loved the character, and obviously by this point you've done several movies and your performance is fantastic in Guardian Angel, but they also surround you with a great cast. Daniel McVicker, you work with Liddy Denier, Marshall Teague, Robert Miano, people like this who had been in Marshall Teague and Robert Miano had been in a bunch of PM stuff as well, and were just sort of well-known character actors. Talk a little bit about working with the cast, and especially, I guess, the banter with you and Daniel really sells that sort of burgeoning friendship relationship in the film.
Yeah, that was kind of fun for me because, there definitely is a love interest between those two, and that was something I really didn't have too much in my past films. It was more like, no, you're the tough karate girl. So that was like enjoyable for me. Like that was a different character for me to portray. And he was very easy to get along with. We had a great chemistry on set. Liddy was, I'm still friends with her today, which is great, because sometimes when you do films, you talk to people like, I haven't seen Daniel like in so long,
Yeah.
But Liddy, I still keep in touch with. Marshall Teague, and I have remained friends. So it was a nice film where we made lifelong friends in that. And it was just a fun set. I really loved doing it. And I think when you have a great cast and everybody's there putting out their best and there's no egos, everybody just has a great time and really appreciates each other. And that's how this film was. And, I'm a very spiritual person, and Guardian Angel, feel like it was definitely a blessed movie.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I love that wild like metal sculpture thing that is sort of the guardian angel sculpture. That's in Daniel's house in the movie, the one
Uh-huh.
that's under the stairs. It's a great depiction. It's actually like a really good bit of modern sculpture art. Rather than it sort of being a cheap knockoff or something for the film. It's actually like a really interesting piece. I wonder who has that now, if it even exists, or whether they just got rid of it.
Yeah.
Lastly, then about PM, sort of, well, two questions to round out the bit on PM, and then I'd love to talk about Black Creek quickly as well. First of all, how did working on a PM film differ for you from sort of some of the other? I know you've touched on it a little bit, but obviously you were working in both America and Canada at this point. You had done, as we sort of talked about, the Rage and Honor films, the Tiger Claws films, first one anyway, Undefeatable, and the Lady Dragon films. You've done a few, although Lady Dragon, that's not in America, that's in
Indonesia.
Indonesia. Right. How did Guardian Angel differ, working with PM differ, and how did you feel like it fit within your career path at that point?
Well, first of all, it was local. I got to stay home. I didn't have
Right.
to travel, it was all shot, around my house in LA area. So that was great.
Yeah.
And I just remember, having a lot of impact with the script, and the character. They were very open,
Yeah.
to like sometimes you go, oh, like did a movie like it like pass, and they were like trying to not make me look so nice, because they're like, no, your character doesn't look like that. But they were like, they were making sure I was happy with the hair and the makeup. We did tests prior, and that was something new for me,
Yeah.
that I haven't had before. Is like, oh wow, someone really has a concern about lighting and making me look good, So I loved working with them. Yeah, I would easily have done another movie with them because it was such a great team to work with.
Yeah, and that sort of sets up my last question on Guardian Angel then. Obviously a lot of other people did at least two or three films with them, and I was just interested as to why you didn't go back. I know obviously there was that Stallone thing that was hovering out there that I think kind of hampered some of you taking other movies and things. I think you talk about that on the Blu-ray, but was that the reason you didn't do a second PM film, or did you just move on in your career naturally?
You know, I I I went through so many different phases in my career. Like I was signed up with ICM, with Lou Pitt, who is the biggest talent agent around, and they were like turning down like all the small budget movies because I was supposed to do a movie with Sylvester Stallone called The Executioner.
Yeah.
So they, I mean, like they wanted to do another China O'Brien 3 and 4, but I was just listening to what they said because here I am, here's me, this martial art actress coming in, and I have this big time agent, lawyer, all this and that, and they would turn down a lot of stuff. So I don't know, specifically if they would have offered another movie or not.
Right.
It never really came to me. It was always the choice of the agents that I was with.
Right, because you were kind of, you'd done Fast Getaway 1 and 2 that I've got to imagine just because of Corey Haim's involvement were sort of bigger movies or sort of studio movies. Irresistible Force you had done for TV with Stacy Keach, which was obviously sort of a bigger profile movie. Am I right in saying that
Yeah.
about those kind of three films were like bigger profile somewhat?
Yeah, and I think a lot of the things didn't come to me, and I think it was, it's a shame because, they would offer whatever they were offering, and, my agents would go, no, no, you're not doing that anymore. You're not doing that anymore. Well, I
Right.
want to do that. I want to do it. No, you can't. You have to, you're going to do a movie with Sylvester Stallone. You have to, be up on this echelon here. And
Yeah.
as I look back, that was probably a big mistake because to me, it was about the project, having fun. It wasn't about the money, but to, the agents that you had back then, it was all about, well, okay, they're not going to pay that much, and
Yeah.
probably got out of the pay scale there at that time with my, agents.
Yeah, which I mean it is sad I think just because PM go on to do 94 is sort of there, although they've been going since the late 80s. 94, 95, 96. These are like their we think as PM fans kind of their big zenith years, their years where they're really churning out some fantastic like bigger and bigger films. And it would have been lovely to see you partnered up with Don in a movie or Gary Daniels in a movie, or there were so many opportunities there. So it is sad, but I understand. Obviously, you were trying to take your career to the next level. There was this promise from Stallone. I'll never forgive him that it never that it never panned out, because we would have loved to have seen you in bigger American movies in the way that you had been in Hong Kong. But just to let you know, this is the other thing I find about Hollywood. It's so short-sighted, because these films, while okay, may not have been big money makers in their day or whatever, have stayed relevant and popular and have fans around the world, as well as you do all these appearances. So I'm sure you know. And while Guardian Angel might not be making any money anymore, it's at least a thing that, people recognize you from. And then when you're doing Black Creek, as you're doing, you're moving into the world of writing and production and setting up your own films, which I want to get on to talk about. Obviously, it's those fans that are going to be the ones that are backing something like Black Creek and excited for it coming out. So, if you don't mind telling, like, where did the idea to do Black Creek come from, and when did you decide, oh, this is going to be the one that I put all my involvement into?
Well, for years I've been saying I always wanted to do my own film. I wanted to be in control of everything, the casting, the fight scenes, but it's a big endeavor to do a film yourself. And my partner, Robert Clancy, said, let's just, let's do your own movie. And he was like, what do you want to do? And I said, a Western. And he's like, a Western? And I was like, yeah, I want to do a Western. I want to be this tough female gunslinger. And then it was like, well, what is it? Is it a revenge? Yes, it's a revenge. Well, who gets killed? Well, my brother, my family. So it kind of went on from there. And I think, ever since I was like a little girl, I always loved like the Annie Oakley, the tough Western woman, and if you Google female gunslinger, like Selma Hayek comes up or something like that, or Sharon Stone, and it's like, no, but they can't really fight. I said, I want to do a Western, and Yellowstone was like my inspiration. I loved the dark grittiness of Yellowstone. And I said, I want it to be dark and gritty. I don't want any silly moves. I want tough, brutal fight scenes, I want to do a movie that I would like to see. And that's what I like to see. And some people say, oh, well, like I was just looking at Black Creek, well, it might not be for everybody because it's very brutal and dark and every move makes sense. There's no like silly moves, oh yeah, that looks like very acrobatic, but it wouldn't work. I just wanted everybody to fight different. I wanted the biggest cast of action stars that I could. I wanted every character to have an importance. One thing that, bothers me when I see films is they're slow and I get bored. And I didn't want anything like, I think on Black Creek, if you get up and go get some popcorn or go to the bathroom, you miss something. I wanted to keep the pace, fast. And, it was a very small budget. We did it in 14 days and we have a 2-hour movie. And it's insane when I look at it. And I just look like, and we raised the money on Kickstarter and Indiegogo. And a lot of my friends were saying, oh, don't do that because so-and-so, this guy actor, he did a Kickstarter program and he didn't make it. Why do you think you'd make it? He has 5 million followers, and I'm like, I started getting a little nervous, and then someone said to me, but you're not him, you're you. And I said, let's go for it, because I was like, I don't want to fail. But we became, the second largest action picture funded on Kickstarter, which is phenomenal. It's and then just I had so many fans in this movie, and they just came with so much love and so much support. And I wanted this to be like very eerie looking. So we had a lot of night scenes, which is tougher because you have to light the whole town up, right? A lot of productions that have small budgets do day shoot because then they don't have to use lights, they're just using the cameras. But I just wanted that eerie glowing candlelight fire look, and in Arizona at the Mescal Ranch, and it was like freezing. I remember Richard Norton and I, we were doing our fight scene, which is very tough, very strong. And the reason, I wanted Richard, for this part is because I knew we've done so many movies before that our fight scenes are really down and dirty and gritty.
Yeah.
And we were doing it at like 4 o'clock in the morning, and it's freezing. Your muscles are all tight and everything. So it really was, it was a tough shoot. But, when you look at this movie, I'm just so proud of it. I really don't think too many people could have pulled this off in that short time with a small budget. And like even now, we're going to be airing on Apple TV on June 17th, and pre-orders. We're like number 5, and like we're up against Mission Impossible, Sinners, Final Destination, the
Yeah.
Karate Kid, and I'm like, all these movies, their budget was like, at least $90 million. And here's this little film, like our budget wasn't even probably their caterings,
Right.
so I was just so proud of it that, when I show, I just really want to. I've always been a trailblazer that women can do this. Look at, you can co-write, you can produce, you can do your own movie, don't take no for an answer. Do it the way you want to do it. Have your vision, and that it would inspire people to do it. And I just had the greatest team. I had James Marlowe, who came in and helped with all the editing. And it's funny, I always call him my guardian angel, so I still
Yeah.
use that term. We have Jim Peterick, who co-wrote Eye of the Tiger. He wrote my ending song.
Oh, great.
And and like just like Mark Shear and just our whole team just came together for this little film, and just out of love, just like saying, "Oh, let me be part of it. I'll be an executive producer, and I'll do all your music score, for you." It just was really blessed, and I'm hoping people pre-order it now, because on Apple TV, because that shows other studios that we're up there. We're up there, like all the platforms, we're up there with the major studios that people want to see this movie. And you could watch our trailer, and I think, how most people put the best the best scenes in the trailer.
Yeah.
Our best scenes are not even in the trailer. It's going to be so much more, and so much more exciting. So I hope everybody out there can pre-order it, and when it airs June 17th, that we get a lot of people just know that so much love and so much hard work went into this little film.
Oh, and it's fantastic. Us fans are so excited for you and so happy for you, Cynthia, that you've been able to put this together. I mean, obviously the cast alone excites us enough to come, but also the fact that, when you said you were making your own movie, and then, because obviously I see all your Facebook posts and everything, I follow you on Facebook. When I see you then say, well, it's going to be a Western, I'm like, oh wow, okay, this is yet again, it's something different. You know what I mean? It's not what you would necessarily expect. It's not. I know that you've done some films with sort of big ensembles, like the Alexander Nevsky movie and other movies like that in other countries. It's so nice to have something that I think is shot in America, has an American feel to it, has this great martial arts cast and actor, strong acting cast as well. And just to see you, Richard and Don, and obviously it's incredibly sad that I guess this is Richard's last movie, or certainly the last movie with you, right?
Yeah, I think it was his last one as well.
Yeah. It's obviously very sad. That was very sudden, and I'm, obviously we're still reeling from it, but obviously our hearts go out to you as his close friend, and I would just exceptionally sorry for your loss.
Yeah, it was such a shock, and just so traumatic for us. But that makes Black Creek even more special, because when we had our Beverly Hills screening, Richard came over for it, and he loved it. He loved, he just was so happy with it. And so I'm so glad he got to see it. And he actually called me and he said, "Can we do another screening so some of my friends could see it?" Because sometimes, everything is so chaotic on set, especially this one, with 2 weeks. And there was so much fighting in it, because I didn't want it like too much guns. I wanted everybody fights really good. Everybody's strong. And I don't think he was sure how it was going to come out. And he was just so surprised and so happy. And that just is a good memory for me, that, he loved this film. And to me, I think it's his best acting ever. He's brilliant in it.
Great. Yeah, well, we can't wait to see it. So it's on Apple TV now. Everyone listening needs to go and pre-order it. It'll be then going live on June 17th to purchase or rent on Apple TV. When does it then go to all the other streaming rental services, Amazon Prime and Hulu and things like that, when you can rent it?
I believe the 17th it will go to a lot of the major platforms.
Okay, so it's available to rent or purchase once June 17th comes around, but before then you can pre-order it on Apple TV. We're obviously very, very excited about that. So I've already heard that you are planning, or I don't know whether you've officially announced, but planning a Black Creek 2, a sequel to the film. Do you have any wish list cast members from your action community that you would love to have in the film?
Yes, I do. It's funny because even the second one that we're working on, we have the script already. And, we're really not going to go into really full pre-production until this comes out and I get the incentives out to everybody that, donated to our campaign, because I want to make sure they're all happy and they know, okay, this is good before, we start focusing on the second one. But I will definitely, yes, I definitely have like a wish list. We're going to, depending on our budget, which hopefully when people see this, it's going to be a much bigger, and we have like a bigger shooting day. So we're looking at some names. Probably I shouldn't mention them right now, but some like action stars that weren't in it that are my friends. Like I'd love to have like Olivia Gruner in it, Kurt McKinney, like some of those people. But we might also have like on a wish list, we would love to get Steve Buscemi in it, and
I would love it if Steve Buscemi was like a secret martial arts action fan and decide and agreed to do it. Do you know who someone weirdly who was cropped up in one low budget film that I can think of that seems to be a genre star and will occasionally seems to be like a genre fan and will occasionally do little things like that is Paul Giamatti. He is. I was listening to his podcast and he was talking a lot about kind of B movies and rare movies and little quirky movies and action movies and horror films and things like that. And I don't know why, but I don't know. Try Paul Giamatti. I get the feeling that he would do it if he had like a tasty part, like a rusty old sheriff or something.
that would be awesome. And we're also like, for this one goes into, first movie we did, action and a Western. And we like my partner and I, Robert, we researched everything. Like you won't find, like sometimes when we see Westerns, we're like, you could see the sneaker print, you could see the car track in that. We made sure that nothing was in there like, oh, wait, we got to CGI that belt buckle out because that wasn't during that time. So we really try to keep it as authentic as we could, like even up until like right before we had our screening, we were still like, well, wait, let's edit this, let's edit that. And that's one thing that, I really just want to keep doing my films because I love the process of working with our editor and saying, no, this isn't right. No, we got to have a better take here. We need to speed this up. No, I don't like how Don Wilson's face looks in that, and I don't think anybody really cares that much. There would have been, if someone else would have edited this without us doing it, it would have been a completely different movie. But we painstakingly made sure every frame looked the best it could be. And I love that now. I think it kind of spoiled me because like I'm looking at movies, and even a movie of my own, I'm going, oh, why did they use that? They should have used this scene. They should have did this, and to me, it's such a creative process, to be able to have control and have the film come out how you want it and how the best it can be, of course, for your dollars. Like if we would have had a double budget, it would have been much, much bigger. But, I just love that process. I'm really looking forward to doing, Black Creek 2.
Well, it's interesting because you were saying earlier about sort of women in the industry kind of, producing their own stuff and doing their own stuff. And that's becoming more and more the trend. I mean, everyone from high profile actors all the way down have either production companies themselves or second businesses or, things like a lot of homegrown stuff that they're now doing. And, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. And I think the era of the like big corporate money blowout, $100 million, $300 million movie, I don't think it's ever going away, but I think it is dwindling. I think there is a vacuum there for more interesting, self-funded, self-made, diverse films to find an audience. I really do. And I think that the corporate culture is, so people are sort of moving away from it just societally, I think. And so I think the more independent stuff that can get out there with great names and great action and great shooting and everything you're talking about, so much the better. So lastly, then, I know that you both interviewed each other on your YouTube channels, and there certainly seems to be a mutual appreciation society between the two of you. But I know that you've become friends with Scott Adkins over the years. I know that at some point in one of those interviews, and I forget if it was your interview or his interview, you said about working together. Please tell us at some point you guys are going to work together, because I would absolutely adore that.
I would too. I would love to have him in Black Creek too. We'll see. But it's funny because we just did the UK martial arts show.
Yes.
And Scott and I were talking, and we were coming up ideas, and we're going, oh, this would be funny. This would be great. So I think it definitely would happen. And I know it's funny, because Scott said in that interview that China O'Brien was one of his, movies that he saw that he wanted to get involved in film. So he's like, if you do another China O'Brien, I'll be in it. I'm like, I'm going to hold you to that. And, it's something we've been talking about. I actually thought after I do Black Creek 2, I would love to do China O'Brien. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, we don't have Richard, it's like, but.
Well, Scott could play Richard's son or something. You know what I mean? Bring Scott. I don't know that that's age appropriate. How old is Richard compared to Scott? I don't know their ages off the top of my head. So maybe Richard.
No, it could work. It could work for sure.
Okay, Richard was 75. Okay, old enough to be Scott's dad. So that would work.
But I think I would love to work with Scott, and I do think I think in the future we probably will end up like doing something together.
Yeah, because when you talk about modern action stars who have kind of gone the same route that yourself, Don Wilson, Gary Daniels, and others have gone. And when you talk about modern films sort of being boring sometimes and needing to keep the action on screen and needing to speed them up and make them more entertaining, I think the one guy out there who's still doing that is Scott Adkins. I think for all the bang for your buck, whatever you want to call it, for all the straight to video action stuff out there, and I'm not just saying this because he's a fellow Brit, but it helps that he's a fellow Brit because we've only had 3 action stars in our entire 4. We've had Gary Daniels, Darren Shahlavi, Scott Adkins, and Jason Statham. It's really the only action stars we've ever produced. So and Scott and I have talked on occasions, and he's a really good guy. So anyway, we'd love to see that happen, and hopefully in the future. But I will urge everyone listening to support Black Creek in absolutely every single way possible. If you love Cynthia Rothrock's movies, if you love action movies, if you love Westerns, and you just want to make independent film successful, exciting, and different again, pick something like Black Creek and really back it, because I think that would be a really worthwhile thing to do, if nothing else, because of just the phenomenal films, career, and everything that you've given us, Cynthia. It keeps just giving and being exciting to watch your career evolve, and couldn't be more excited and happy for everything you're doing. So thank you, and keep it going, because we love it.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me on, and thank you for all the support for Black Creek. And I want to thank everybody out there, especially all my backers, because if it wasn't for them, I would not have been able to do this movie. So thank you, everybody, with all my heart, and I hope you love Black Creek as much as we all do.
All right, great. All right, next up, we're going to hear from the director, Richard Munchkin. So you would go on to make Guardian Angel with Cynthia Rothrock. I'm a big Cynthia Rothrock fan. What was she like to work with? And was there any direction from either Joseph or Rick about what they sort of wanted to see in their Rothrock film? I presume they were aware of like her Hong Kong work and other stuff.
So first of all, again, she was great to work with. I just found that working with martial artists was just almost always really easy and good, because they're used to discipline. You know what I mean? They're so disciplined. I never any problems of showing up late or, wanting to stay in the trailer, just none of that nonsense that sometimes happens with actors.
Well, because respect is built in, right? There was like that sort of respect and, like you say, just sort of work ethic is sort of built into their martial arts training, really.
Yes.
You wouldn't
exactly.
get away with it in a dojo, so don't do it on set kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And, and the fight choreographer for almost all of those movies was Art Camacho, who went on to do a lot of directing himself. And it was respect for him too, because he's sort of the sensei of the set, right? I mean, so that part was always great. So as far as instructions from Rick and Joe, they came to me, Joe did, and well, actually, I think it was George. George Chimie was in charge of the sales. Right. So George came and said, there's a woman who is a famous cigarette boat racing champion, and she has a $600,000 cigarette boat. And we want this in the movie. And so you have to put her in the movie. And I said, okay, I'm used to this from, Vegas type shows where the producer has some girlfriend that you got to stick in the back of the line that, and he's like, oh, no. She has to have a major part. And I'm like, there really aren't any major parts for women other than, Cynthia's role and the main bad woman, Liddy Denier. And he's like, no, you have to write her in, So she became the police captain. And so she is driving the boat there at the end. And I will say she was a real trooper because, she had to get in that freezing cold water to swim to the boat. And, I think she was doubling for Liddy. And anyway, because, you couldn't let somebody else drive this boat. Right. I mean,
was that Anna Dalva? I'm trying to look on the cast list.
Yeah. I believe that was the name. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. She's like Captain Goddard or something.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So that sort of informs that boat chase at the end, right?
Yeah. That's how the whole ending came about.
Yeah.
Right?
Which is fantastic.
What was in the original script, but
what was in the original script? I'm fascinated.
I really don't remember what it was originally.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said I remember what was in the. I'm sorry.
No. I'm saying I don't remember. But once we had this boat, we had to use it. And actually, I thought it was really cool to have the helicopter too, and be able to do that whole stunt. Chasing down the boat from the helicopter. But
oh, definitely. And the explosion at the end. It's always one of my favorites because. It hits the rock, but it doesn't hit the rock necessarily hard enough to blow up the entire boat. But the entire boat has to blow up. That's one of my favorites.
Yes. This is the physics of a PM movie, and any car that turns over must blow up.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So
again, it's just it's a fantastic ethic. I think it's just entertainment. Obviously, Cynthia Rothrock sort of started off in Hong Kong films. As you said, Art Camacho did a lot of the fight choreography. I know that she has said in the past with some of the other B-movie that she was working on that, American films, her one complaint was American films always spent more time shooting the dialogue than they did shooting the action. Although I've heard her say that PM Entertainment actually understood it and set more time aside for the action than they did for the dialogue. So, and that's obviously evident in the thing. Just talk a little bit about, I guess, shooting those fight scenes or working with Cynthia and Art on the action sequences that are not like the big explosions or whatever, but the fights and kicks and punches.
We developed a shorthand and were able to shoot those things very quickly, mainly because, on a big film, when you do that, the directors of photography, they want to light every single shot, beautifully. And our attitude was we want more coverage and we want it fast. So we're not going to waste a lot of time on lighting and all this kind of stuff, and it really kind of developed with Rick Pepin, who was shooting the first Ring of Fire, where he would take the camera, put it on his shoulder, and we would just move boom, 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 boom. Like, okay, shoot over this shoulder for this one punch. Okay, now, Rick would get down on his knee, this one kick, and just shot after shot after shot under one sort of big lighting setup that would accommodate that. So, we could get 30, 40, 50 setups, on a fight in very short amount of time.
Yeah. And the fights were mainly shot like that then, sort of piecemeal. When you got someone like Cynthia in, was there ever an option to sort of maybe shoot 3 or 4, whether it was a punch kick and a flip or something, sort of all in one? Or was it always just sort
absolutely.
of broken?
Yeah. So we would shoot a master of the whole fight, sometimes with 3 cameras.
Got it. Okay.
So we would have a master from, as I say, maybe 3 different cameras.
Great.
And then go in for the coverage of individual stuff.
Nice. And I think, Art Camacho, I think I was looking earlier at, obviously the fight choreographers and stunt performers are sort of the other, maybe unsung heroes. I don't know. I mean, I know that Spiro Zartos, who started off with PM, went on to, enormous films and has become kind of Hollywood's go-to guy. But I also know that obviously they were shooting a lot of PM Entertainment movies all at once. So very often sort of there were different stunt crews. You tend to work with almost on all your films, I think, looking up Art Camacho as the fight choreographer, or Don or Cynthia sort of working in that regard as well. And then Cole S. McKay seemed to be kind of your key stunt coordinator. Yep. Can you talk about working with both those guys and what it was like, so and how it came to be that you were sort of always with those guys, I guess?
Working with Art Camacho, he was just fantastic. On the very first kickboxing movie, actually, Eric Lee was the fight coordinator with Don, but Art was his assistant. And Art kind of ended up taking over that role on subsequent movies. Eric was a very creative guy. He was the kind of little comedic relief in Ring of Fire 1. And so he was a creative guy, but he was not a sort of organized guy. And Art kind of had that role. Art would find the fighters, get them to rehearse. He did all the kind of organizational stuff. And so on subsequent movies, Art became the fight guy. And really by, I don't know, the second, third movie or so, once it came to a fight, Art would just take over and I'd let him do it. Yeah, so he was great. And Cole, Cole was another one. He just really a nice guy, great guy, and did good work. And, his people would show up and do what they were supposed to do.
Yeah, did most stunt coordinators kind of have their own team? There was sort of the Cole team and then the Spiro team. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And lastly then, a quick anecdote from Rick Pepin. You did one film with Cynthia Rothrock. Was there ever any talk about doing further films with Cynthia? I know that there was some deal with Stallone that fell through that I think made her not do a few movies for a while, but was there any talk about doing a second film with her?
There may have been some talk, but it wasn't, it never really got anywhere. I know less about that one. I wasn't very involved in that one.
Okay.
We just okayed them. And
it has a great boat explosion at the end.
Boy, I forget. We did so much action.
Yeah.
Somebody brings up something else. I forgot we did that,
Well, it's one of those great movie explosions where I think the boat barely grazes a rock, but the entire thing explodes, which is always, whenever something like that happens, you're a huge fan.
Okay, was that a helicopter shot that followed the boat in?
Yes, I believe so. It's right at the end of Guardian Angel. It's down at the rock because the guy she's protecting has sort of one of those big Malibu homes or whatever, and I think it's down on the rocks in the ocean at the end. If I'm remembering it rightly, it's been a while.
But there's an ocean chase there, right?
There is
an ocean chase.
Yes, at the end.
Oh, okay. So I shot all that stuff from the helicopter.
Okay.
And I remember it because I was asking the pilot, because I wanted to follow it in, and I said, follow it in, and I'll undercrank it, but he followed right into the cliff. And he got pretty close to the cliff, actually, which is a little bit scary.
Yeah, no, you see
'Cause,
you can see the cliff in the shot when the boat explodes, like it almost like the helicopter is almost right above the explosion, or at least slightly to the left of it. You're not very far away from the explosion.
No, and in those days you'd have a mount with the camera, and you're actually hanging off the side of the helicopter. I mean, today they have the gyro mounts on the front and the back, and the cameraman does not hang out of the helicopter like we did in the old days. So but that was actually my brother-in-law that flew that plane. So.
And was there something about you yourself, or you and Joseph, or just that had that thrill nature, that sort of thrill-seeking nature, or was it just like we've gone so far now with these action films, if we don't get to this point where I'm hanging off a helicopter above an explosion, we're not going to take our films to the next level, so let's just suck it up and get it done? Like, what kind of mindset brought stuff like that about in either in you and Joseph, or in your crew and cast?
I think in general, you sort of have to outdo yourself, as you go forward. And I did enjoy being involved in the action stuff. That was probably, I enjoyed it. I just, like I said, you had the best job in the world, because you get a bunch of toy cars and talk about the chase and how it's going to go, and this car is going to flip over, and then in a week I get to go out and do it. So it's it was fun. I think that separated Joe a little bit from me. I was more of the technical guy. Joe was a little more of the writing and directing, and I kind of made sure the films got put together, that anything that we shot could end up being a film,
Yeah.
So, which is a lot of reasons why I shot for guest directors, just so I could be on set all the time.
Of course.
And make sure I'm covered. Make sure I'm covered.
It's interesting. I'm looking at 1994 for PM, and it's fascinating because you have a complete mix. You have, direct hit and zero tolerance, both of which where they're bringing in a slightly bigger name star to do kind of, a PM film where they probably put a little more money and a little more time, a little more effort in. You have some of their best family teen films. You've got A Dangerous Place, which we've talked about before. You've got Magic Kid 2. You have a couple of their regulars who are still trucking along. So you have Cyber Tracker with Don Wilson, Ice with Tracy Lords, and then T-Force and Lion Strike again with Don Wilson and Jack Scalia. And Guardian Angel is sort of the odd person out, because they don't treat it, with direct hit and zero tolerance. They go, well, shit, we've got these bigger named actors, and so we've got to build a bigger film around them, right? So zero tolerance has slightly better production value, as does direct hit, and they're sort of more self-contained films. And then you have, some very well done, and I love Cyber Tracker, I love Ice, I love T-Force, I love Lion Strike. These are great. I mean, 94 is a great year. It really is. But Guardian Angel feels like, they bring Cynthia on, and I've got to believe that Joseph and Rick wanted more Cynthia Rothrock films. I've got to believe that, because Guardian Angel feels to me a little like they, when we talk about the cinematography and the production value of the film, and we should get onto that and move on to that, it seems a little lesser than. Now, look, they are stacked. They are producing multiple action movies. How many is that? Lion Strike, T-Force, Guardian Angel, Dangerous Place, Deadly Target, Ice, Zero Tolerance, Cyber Tracker, Direct Hit, Magic Kid 2. That's 10 movies in a year, right? So they are stacked. And we've already talked about this on other episodes, but T-Force is phenomenal. Lion Strike is wall-to-wall action. A Dangerous Place, you've heard us talk about. We really, really enjoyed it. Zero Tolerance, again, great titles. Guardian Angel, don't get me wrong, it's a fantastic PM film, but it feels to me, with some of the set pieces and with some of the set dressing, set decorating, and the cinematography, that it's a quicker, cheaper movie than some of those others. You know what I mean? I don't get from Guardian Angel the same feeling that I get from, for example, their 3 movies that follow it, T-Force, Lion Strike, and Steel Frontier. These are all movies that I feel like they gave a lot more energy, time, effort to. It's not to say that Guardian Angel is not a great movie. It's a great movie. It's a great PM film. And in terms of Cynthia Rothrock's American output, it's top of the list for me. I think it's better than Sworn to Justice.
I mean, I think for me, it doesn't touch the it's not as good as for me as, or I don't enjoy it as much as the China O'Briens and the Raging Honors. I think those are ones that.
No, for me, it's better than the Lady Dragon franchise. It's better than the Fast Getaway franchise, to be honest. It's definitely better than the Tiger Claws franchise. It's probably about the same as the Rage and Honor and Undefeatable movies, just about. But, you know, in terms of, like, when you go into Rothrock's American movies, China O'Brien, obviously. Martial Law 2, fantastic. Like, I wish Martial Law 1 didn't exist. Like, Martial Law 2 is so good.
Yes, no.
Well, because Chad McQueen just doesn't have the same impact as Wincott in Martial Law 2. Martial Law 2 is so much better. You know, and then Lady Dragon and Honor and Glory and stuff, these are ones that are kind of made overseas and fairly cheap. Undefeatable, the same kind of, but Undefeatable has a kind of kitsch joy to it. Guardian Angel definitely has, to some extent, better production values than these other movies we're mentioning. And I do put it in and watch it more than I watch some of these other movies, although I've seen all these other films that we're talking about. I just think when you stack it up against a lot of other PM films and even a lot of the movies that they're making in 94, not the action sequences, not Rothrock and not the plot, but the cinematography, the set decoration, what location, whatever you want to call it, and just in general, some of the non-action scenes, not as good. They haven't got the pacing worked out in quite the same way. What do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, this isn't one that I have as like a top 20 PM flick. My top 20 list on Letterboxd, this doesn't crack that top 20 for me. But, you know, there are things that I enjoyed about it more now that I'm kind of seeing more of them. So, like, for example, the bar scene, the fact that she beats up both Cole S. McKay and Art Camacho.
Cole S. McKay's the guy going over the bar, right? With the stash. The Cole S. McKay stash. God, I hope he still has that money.
And he has an opening sequence, right? Because she goes into the bar and she's like, "Hey, where's so and so?" And like, "Oh, we'll go over there." You know, this guy knows him. You know, the guy that whose crotch was set on fire by.
Oh, I was going to say yes. It features a crotch being set on fire, which is phenomenal. I think someone posted something about this more recently, where they said there should be more movies where men's crotches are set on fire.
Exactly. Or because it was like the perfect combination of when she does it, right? Because he's like, boy, you just got out of prison. I imagine you got fire you need to put out. He's like, and he's like, yeah. Well, she goes, well, why don't we put out that fire? And she dumps like liquor on his crotch, and then it's like, but actually, maybe if you want the fire back, and she throws a couple lit matches on it. Suddenly, he's like walking around. He's like, oh, I'm on fire.
And while alcohol is flammable, if you threw whiskey on some pants and set fire to it, it wouldn't light on fire.
Right. Yeah. Right. I mean, you'd have to be drinking because I think it's, what is it, like the Bacardi 151 or whatever that's like got the warning that can.
You're going to be drinking like moonshine, is what you're going to be drinking.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's got to have a high alcohol content. Yeah. Right. Exactly. It's it's just, it's such a great, so then she goes and like beats that guy up and she's beating everybody up. And I mean, it's a great bar fight.
It's fantastic. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
And in fact, setting it up for Black Creek, which we also talk about in the interview, I don't know, but I hope there's a Western style bar brawl that matches this bar brawl in Guardian Angel, because it's a great Western style bar brawl in Guardian Angel. I'm a huge fan of the action set pieces in Guardian Angel, and I don't mind the rest of the scenes. I just don't think that, I don't know whether it's where they chose to film or how they chose to film it, but I just feel that the cinematography, well, that's why. Look at it right there. It's a
different guy, right?
It's not Ken Blakey and it's Garrett not Rick Pepin. It's Garrett Griffin, right?
Right. So Garrett Griffin, if you look at his bio, I think it's the first film he's DP on, or his second film he's DP on for them. But for the most part, he's a camera operator, gaffer, all those kinds of things. And so it's one of those PM situations, right, where somebody's getting their shot to do something. And so maybe because of the fact that they had so many movies that year that, Blakey and Pepin need to do these other ones. All right, Garrett Griffin, this one doesn't look like it's got as many crazy things in it. Let's give it a try. Of course, he's doing a boat chase, which nobody had done a boat chase before. But, there's sequences like when they go into the mental institution or the mental hospital for Cibar we get these looping shots that kind of go, or these sort of Dutch angles and things like that aren't really known for PM. Like when Denier is being led out of the prison to the court, she's going to the courthouse to go to trial, and she gets attacked by Rothrock. Same thing. We get these Dutch angle kind of deals that they're not known for PM. And I was trying to think of what DTV does use them. I mean, erotic thrillers sometimes would use them to sort of get this sense of, make a surreal sense of things. But PM, Blakey, one of the things that Blakey would do sometimes is he would have a shot that would kind of bleed into another shot. So maybe I think it was is Rage or Recoil, where there's a volleyball that cuts into you kind of go through the volleyball to the next scene. He would do stuff like that, but they didn't get, it wasn't like these MTV cuts that Garrett Griffin does here, which again gives it a very different feel, I think.
Yeah, and it's weird because he does Lion Strike, and I think Lion Strike looks pretty decent. But you're right. Before Guardian Angel, apart from Private Wars, which again I don't think is particularly visually exciting, he is mainly a second unit director or a key grip or an assistant camera or a camera operator or a gaffer. Not to take anything away from him, but I think that when and look, I said they make 10 movies in 94. So Rick Pepin and Ken Blakey, who are the two main cinematographers who really define the PM look and feel, they are not around because they are stretched fucking thin, and they're about to head into 1995 where they do even more, So this is the guy who obviously they're like, well, we're making Guardian Angel at the same time as all this other stuff. Let's get this guy up from second unit gaffer and make him the cinematographer. I just think Ken Blakey and Rick Pepin know how to go into a low budget set. And I'm thinking more about when they burst in on the guy trying to do the bong, and he's got the phony money, and they're satin, and it's meant to be a sleazy apartment, and it's so clearly a set on a soundstage. When they go to Robert Miano when he's doing the money forging, and he's got that big polystyrene sculpture that's meant to be like a stone sculpture, whatever. I feel like Blakey or Pepin would know how to light that and film it in a way that wouldn't make it look like polystyrene, or wouldn't make it look like a set on a soundstage, or wouldn't make it look as cheap as it is. And I get it. Again, they're making 10 movies. It has some great action sequences. I love the horse chase sequence where the stunt woman's wig comes off. I love the boat chase with, suddenly all of a sudden the Beetlejuice woman is, riding a speedboat and, suddenly in cahoots with Rothrock, and away they go or whatever. I love all that stuff. I love the bar fight. I'm a big fan of the bikini babes. There's plenty in this movie that I absolutely love, but for some reason, and I all I'm saying is that anyone listening to this who has not seen the movie before, but has seen some PM films, I guess I'm saying cut this movie some slack. Is that what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I think it's, I think there's things to enjoy in this movie, like we've talked about. I think it's a fun time. I think sometimes that's all you need with these movies. I think that's the thing is I think it's a movie that's not going to knock your socks off. It's not like there's these moments in it that we've been talking about some of the other movies, right? I mean, it's not going to it has nothing like The Sweeper. I mean, there's probably 2 or 3 things in The Sweeper that are that this movie doesn't have, or Zero Tolerance that you were talking about. There's three things in Zero Tolerance that are probably better than anything that's in this movie. But that's not this movie's fault, right? It's just, right? We can't blame them because these other movies are so good. Do I want to judge this against Zero Tolerance or judge it against The Sweeper when it's its own movie and it does some things really well?
It's much better to judge it against Cynthia's other American output at the time. As a Rothrock film, it's in my top 10. As a PM film, as you say, I don't know that it cracks my top 15.
Yeah. No, and I think it was when I first reviewed this, that was kind of where my mindset was, because I think I'd seen a lot of other stuff before it, and I was just like, wow, this is what Rothrock PM is. And I don't think I even was at that time was even thinking in terms of PM. I was thinking more in terms of, I knew Art Camacho. Okay, she's working with Art Camacho. I had seen some of her other ones. I mean, China O'Brien is just an absolutely iconic, two movie set that she does. Rage and Honor, to your point, I think one of the things that happens with Rage and Honor, especially the second one, is they become more Richard Norton movies than they are Rothrock was. Definitely the second one for sure. So it's like it's hard to judge those. But then, I mean, like the Tiger Claws movies, it's like, and you hear her tell stories about doing the Tiger Claws movies, like when she was on the set of the second one, and Bolo Young is like storming around the set looking for Jalal Merhi because he hasn't been paid yet. And she's just like, this is not how movies were made in Hong Kong. This is not how this happened. And, at least PM had like a slightly different vibe. I mean, Bo Svensson apparently didn't agree, according to Jacobsen Hart. But overall, right, this movie has a different quality. I mean, this is not like a slap together Jalal Merhi film.
No. I mean, and that's what I mean is that in terms of Rothrock's 90s output that is not Hong Kong, her Hong Kong films are superb. They're fantastic. The 90% of them are absolutely great. Her 90s into the 2000s output is great if you're a fan of her. If you're a fan of her, watch them all and love them all and find things in them that you love. And I've done that. I've done my Rock Rothathon where I've gone through and, years and years and years ago when 12 years ago, I went through and watched damn near every movie she had done up until that point. And then again recently where I picked up Lady Dragon 1 and 2 on VHS, Fast Getaway 1 and 2 on DVD, Guardian Angel on Blu-ray, and Irresistible Force on VHS and Undefeatable on DVD and so on. I've rewatched a lot of these in the last few years. And Guardian Angel, as far as Rothrock's 90s output, is the better movie. The fact that this is as good as it is, a testament to, like I say, really good script, because I think the plot is very strong. And then the performances of Rothrock and McVicker that I think, again, are very strong. And then lastly, the sort of thing where they're like, well, it's Cynthia Rothrock, let's do a big variant of action scenes. Let's not just do martial arts over and over and over and over again. Let's do a whole bunch of different things.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing I think too that maybe we keep in mind as well, I guess, is that you look at these other movies that came out in '94. They're working either with people that they've worked with before, and so they were used to them, and they're so it's like, okay, more Don the Dragon Wilson, more whoever. But then someone like a Robert Patrick, I mean, that's a bigger name now. Terminator 2, if we get Robert Patrick in something here, that's a bigger deal. So I think it's the other thing is that we think of Rothrock as Rothrock. She's the name, and I think PM looked at her as a name that they could sell the movie with. But I think they didn't see it the same way, as they hadn't established something with her like they had established a brand with some of these other names. So they didn't think to give her the most resources, unfortunately.
Right. And I think that it's I think when you hear her talk about the Stallone thing and about the trying to get a Hollywood agent, as much as we love Stallone and we love a lot of Stallone films, I think they really, and maybe Stallone was just like, oh, I've tried to get 20 movies off the ground and they haven't succeeded. So the one that I tried to get off the ground with Cynthia Rothrock in it, why should I feel any different to the other 19 I tried to get made that didn't get made? You know what I mean? But for her, coming from having been this big star in Hong Kong, doing legitimately phenomenal Hong Kong films, and there really isn't another Western actor, even the couple that Gary Daniels is in, there isn't another Western actor that has done Hong Kong films to the success that Cynthia Rothrock has done Hong Kong films. There really isn't. She comes back to America. She does these couple of movies for Golden Harvest, China O'Brien 1 and 2. which are fine and great, but she suddenly realizes on China O'Brien 1 and 2, oh, we don't have 6 months to make this movie. We have 4 weeks.
Right.
And from that moment on, she gets offered this thing by Stallone. She gets a big Hollywood agent. She tries to do the Hollywood thing and invariably finds herself, doing the Tiger Claws movies of the world with Jalal Murray and others. And I think that it's a real, I would have loved to have seen the Rothrock career if she went her own way and didn't have this Hollywood interference, because I would get rid of Fast Getaway 1 and 2 and Irresistible Force and whatever other, an eye for an eye or whatever she does with Sally Field or whatever.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I would get rid of all of those for a genuine run of independent American movies made by people who know what Rothrock can do. You know what I mean? And we don't get that. And it's very sad that we don't get that. To wrap it up, let's do the usual thing that we do here on the PM Entertainment Podcast. We talk about our overall impression of the movie. I think I've sort of talked a lot about my overall impression of the movie. Matt, your take on it?
Yeah, like I said, I don't know if I'd have it. It's on my top 20, but maybe not top 25 even of PM flicks. For Rothrock, I think it's maybe it's definitely top 10 of hers. If you don't count the Hong Kong, if you take the Hong Kong movies out, and it's just I guess like the.
I think even with the Hong Kong films, I put this in her top 10. Even with Righting Wrongs and Yes Madam and others, I still put this in her top 10 because I think it's a genuinely great Rothrock movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can at least make the point that the production values of this are better than a lot of the stuff that we're going to be seeing from her in the 90s. I mean, it's whether it's the Joel Merhi films or the Leo Fong films, that kind of thing.
Yeah, she sadly gets reduced to some of these movies where, God, if they shot for 10 days, I'd be surprised.
Well, and I mean, the fact, too, that she was, are we going to get paid? That Bolo Young is storming off the set because he's not getting paid. Merhi's trying to make him out. I guess her mom was on the set that day. She was like, "Oh, Bozo's pissed."
Bozo. Favorite scenes then. So for you, go ahead. So Matt, some of your favorite scenes. So
yeah, it's definitely the bar fight. I think is just great because again, two stunt legends. She beats the crap out of both of them. That's really good stuff there. I think there's the end sequence where she's beating up Ken McLeod. That's a good one as well. Where Ken McLeod's like, "Oh, I'm gonna." I don't know what she says, something along the lines. He's like, I'm done playing nice or something like that. And it's like, okay, I'm just going to beat the crap out of you. And I did get a kick out of Dale Jacoby getting ready to hit a bong, and he gets shot in the head by Denny A. So that was a fun scene as well. So those are the ones off the top of my head that I think of that I really enjoyed.
Yeah, the opening half of the movie, the Teague half of the movie is a different movie. It feels like a very different movie to the second half of the movie. I'm far more into the movie once we're at the mansion with the bikini babes and the and Rothrock's moved in and we're having a bit of the banter back and forth with McVicker. Like I'm far more into that movie. Like when I think Guardian Angel, I think that half of the film. The whole opening with the weird party that she goes to that immediately she gets discovered as a cop and all that stuff, and her partner gets killed, and the sort of car chase shootout in a park with two different rival gangs, all that kind of stuff. Like it's fine, and it's how the movie begins. But I don't know. It's odd to me. I think the second half is much better. In terms of favorite scenes, bar fight is definitely a standout. I love when the nerdy guy comes to her Winnebago to check her out, and instead she just kicks him out of the door onto the concrete. I think that's fantastic. I like the storyline that the butler, like the way that the way that they make this millionaire bikini babe hanging out guy, ping pong playing guy relatable is that, that he had a really rough life and the butler is the only thing he has left in his life. I find that charming and touching in its own way. Listen, you still have a butler. Like, let's not, like, I don't have a butler and I'm fine. Like, get over it.
And the poor butler, like Rothrock was giving him shit. Like, remember, like, she's like, well, who's supposed to be watching these monitors? Oh, the butler is. And then the butler comes in and she's like, well, why aren't you watching I'm sorry. And it's like, what else does the butler have to do? And she's like, just do your job. You need to just do your job. And it's like, do you know what the butler does? Yeah. Like, he's running around doing all kinds.
And you're butling this whole mansion.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you're giving him shit for not monitoring them. Maybe he didn't have a talk with Hobbs about hiring somebody on to watch the monitor.
Maybe if you're the security guard, you monitor the fucking cameras.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Leave the butler alone. I thought that was a little bit rough. Like, it didn't look good, in her when she's like, you should just do your job, and I'm going to butter this bagel here, while right. You're, he's like, okay, ma'am, I you're right, I should,
I should be in 8 places at once, even though I'm an over-the-hill British guy. Yeah. I love the boat chase. I really love the boat chase. I think it's well done and a lot of fun, and it blows the movie out to be a bit bigger than it otherwise would feel if it didn't have it in there.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. Yeah.
And we've talked about our rankings. We've said that it's sort of a, for me, it's in my top 20 somewhere. For you, it's in your top 30. And we've talked about our ranking within Cynthia Rothrock movies. It's in my top 10 Cynthia Rothrock movies. Probably the same for you as well. I did want to ask Matt, because we do talk to Cynthia about it in the interview to kind of close out the episode. Are you as excited as I am for Black Creek? I mean, it looks really good. It's the first Rothrock movie that she's done in a long time that I'm really excited for.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, she's been putting a lot into it. I mean, she's posting all the time. So it's like, I think, it's one of those ones that, like, yeah, I'm excited for it. I want it to be good. But I'm also kind of excited to support it. Like, it's like, we want to see it do well, see it succeed. So I was one of the pre-buys on Apple.
Me too. Me too. Yeah.
No, I haven't bought it yet. So I'll probably, once it's out, I'll probably rent it when it's on Prime or
Yeah, I mean, it's pre-order on Apple for like $12.99. It's very reasonable. Like, it's not like I've seen pre-orders go up for like $30 for some movies. So like $12.99. Fuck it. If I own it, $12.99, brilliant. Boom, done. No problem at all. And I urge everyone listening to go pre-order it on Apple. If you're like, well, where? Not only will the link be in the show notes of this very episode, but just find Cynthia Rothrock on Facebook. She's been posting about it 5 times a day for the last. And what I love about this is the first movie that she has, co-written, produced, starred in, and mounted herself. They were I think the second largest action movie funded on GoFundMe. And it is still holding its own. It is within the top 10 of Apple movie purchases this week. It's number 5, which is phenomenal considering it's up against Sinners and some other like really big movies. Listen, I hope Black Creek is, makes, triple its money back. I hope that she's able to invest. I know she wants to make a sequel. I know they are making a sequel. I have to say, I'm really excited by the Black Creek trailer. I think it looks really good. Cynthia was telling me when we were talking that she has overseen every little bit of this, that she handpicked almost everyone, and that when she would watch the dailies, if they didn't like look the way she wanted them to look, she's like, I forced a lot of night shoots because I wanted that like flaming, like I wanted fire in the desert at night and that whole like light everything by fire stuff. Like that was all her idea. And when you look at the trailer, yeah, you look at it and you go, all right, this was made, over 2-3 weeks in some Western set in Arizona, but it looks like someone paid attention to the cinematography. It looks, the trailer, weirdly enough, like doesn't give away a lot of action at all. It gives away a lot of the Western elements and the cinematography, which excite me enough to see it.
Yeah, I'm excited for this too. I've been waiting. It's been kind of, sort of inching forward here. She's been trying to get more money for shooting days and things like that. Obviously, unfortunately we lost Richard Norton before it came out. So,
it'll be his second to last movie, I think.
Yeah,
certainly his last movie is a big star of the movie. I think the other film he's done is just a little stunt thing.
Yeah, because he has some of those. He has these like small little parts and things like the Mad Max movies, the Furiosa and things like that. He's got these small parts, but so it'll be a little bittersweet there. But I think too, it does sound like you said, she's like she said, she put a lot of work into this. It's her baby, and I think in a way, a lot of times those are the ones, right? It's not like these vanity projects that you get with the Nevskys, right? Where Nevsky's like, I need to make a movie where I'm the best guy ever, and,
right.
And I need all the characters around me to tell me I'm the greatest guy ever,
Yeah.
This is a passion project. And I think that there's something about that you can really dig into and appreciate, which I'm excited for.
Well, she wanted good cinematography. She wanted brutal fights. Like, she wants the fights to be really violent. And she wanted to do a Western. And it sounds like she's done it. I said to her in the interview, I said that she should get Adkins to play Norton's kid. Yeah. Because obviously Norton's the big bad in the first one. So I've got to assume that at the end of it, she either beats him up to the point where he might as well die or kills him. Right. And Adkins, I was talking to her and I was suddenly like, shit, how old is Norton and how old is Adkins? Like, would that even work? And she was the one.
Yeah, they're 26 years apart.
Yeah, she was like, oh, no, that would work. Like, Adkins could be his son. I'm like, because Norton's not American. He's Australian. So Adkins could do a slight Australian accent or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? And I was like, get Adkins in Black Creek too. Come on, Scott. Right. Come on, Scott.
No, I agree. The thing about Adkins is that you get the sense that he grew up with the movies we grew up with. I mean, I think he's born in 76. So he grew up with the movies we grew up with, and he's like doing it now. So it's like when he acts opposite Van Damme or acts opposite Dolph or whoever that he's, it's like a dream come true for him. And so it's like, hey, keep living the dream and do this movie with Rothrock and.
All right, man. Well, look, I've kept you long enough. Yeah. Thanks ever so much for coming back on the PM Entertainment Podcast this evening.
Absolutely. Thank you as well. This was a lot of fun. And I can't wait for this episode to come out.
You are now leaving the PM Entertainment Podcast.